Straight to the right.
Yep.
A good chat here. Not just work. I understand.
Okay. And the rain for our operations committee meeting Tuesday, 7th of February. Pretty much all day out there today and yesterday. I'd like to acknowledge our teams that are out there keeping the wheels turning. Things don't stop because of the rain. We have our on tea, we're aiming for about 10:30, lunch about 12:30, and then this afternoon we've got a workshop about 3 p.m. on the Yamley Town Plan and Reserve and Open Spaces strategy. Health and safety, event of emergency, we exit out the door to the rear of the side door to meet outside St John's building. Apologies, I know we have an apology from Pauline White. Are there any other apologies? No, Miss Pauline, I've ever move or do we accept? Second, Brett. We do vote on that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? We have any conflict of interest declarations today? We are being recorded and live streamed. We have any urgent business? So we'll move to confirming the minutes of the 9th of December. We'll quick page turn just for accuracy, starting page 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11.
Yeah, sorry, just on page 9, right, Roding, and it says it several times. It refers to Princess Street in Waikari. It's actually Princess Street. It doesn't have two S's. Thank you.
10, 11, 12, 13. And nothing on page 14. So if we go back to page 5 and look at 5, 6, 7, 8. Page 8, and we may make up on this one. There was discussion taking place on the Balmoral water supply. Is there anything further on that? First bullet, three waters.
No, not mine.
At this stage. I know tonight's a meeting of the Water Liaison Committee, and there might be further come out of that. Page 9. 10, 11, 12, 13. I have got one on page 13, second bullet point that was mentioned around the Waipara Solar Farm application and hearings that were scheduled for 2nd to the 6th of February. I understand that they're now put back to May the 12th. So that might come around next time. Nothing on page 14. So if someone would like to move that those minutes are all correct. Tom, second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes. Thanks, Michelle. So now we move to our we being no decision items today, we'll move to our discussion items, starting on page 15 with the operations report. So we can take us through it by page.
Thanks, Chair. The first note in the executive summary says that we've changed the format a little bit, which you've probably noticed as you've read through it. Be interested in feedback on that, but we have reduced some of the written content slightly and just reduced the amount of time that we spend compiling it, because it takes quite a lot of compiling. So just be interested in your views on that as we work through. During the holiday period, things were steady. We maintained what we describe as a solid level of customer experience through that, and services were delivered on time. We did get some acceleration of pre-seal repairs in a good weather window there. And as you're aware, we've received some additional NZTA funding that we made an application for. And this is to enhance the existing road program. And because we have an overhang and the amount of rates we charge, it doesn't impact on the rating side of things. Just what it means is that money can be ploughed into doing additional work, and that's well planned, that work, and being delivered now. Three Waters maintain full compliance across the 2 months, and we're seeing the advantage of the order software and wastewater stuff that we've been working on for a long time now. Libraries and customer service both saw high levels of engagement throughout that period, and notable in handling was the welfare response following the road closure for a fatal car crash through the pass, and also the youth program there. There's a note here that says that capital delivery is advanced on multiple water contracts being awarded, and in brackets it is below engineers' estimates, and this is something that we need to consider operationally, because we are getting prices that are significantly below estimates. Now, that gives us two options. Number one, it means that instead of putting down 1k of pipe, we can put down 1.5 k's of pipe renewal, and these are pipes that will need to be replaced at some stage. So it means that we can either spend the same amount of money and get a jump start on the replacements going forward, or we can just spend the amount that the contract is and have a saving in our capital budget. So that's something that you need to consider, what outcome you want. A couple of decisions we've made already where we've said we're replacing this amount of pipe because this is what we thought we could afford to replace. We know more needs replacing. So in those cases, we've just gone ahead and replaced more and spent the full amount of budget. But there's a lot of pressure in the contract market at the moment, and we're seeing some really good pricing coming through. So I want you to have a think about that, and I'll come back to you later on for a bit of a discussion about that.
Robbie, so excuse me, if I have some questions about this, do you want me to do it at the end, or do you want me to do it as we're on the pages themselves?
Well, so at the moment, let's go through the executive summary, and I guess when the relevant officers here is probably the best time for asking questions, because we can probably get you a better quality answer than what I'm going to give you. But that particular issue is one that Dan Blair is interested in having a bit of a discussion about. As you're aware, we had a significant safety incident with a vehicle roll and injuries to our staff member. He's making a good recovery. The investigation is ongoing in that regard. We did have some weather-related delays, and the weather is this summer, as people have mentioned previously, hasn't been that conducive to the types of capital works that we're doing, and does have an impact on some of our roading network. We still have a gap in the Datascape area, particularly with compliance building workflows. That's still currently being worked on, and we're making progress there. Vandalism seems to be relatively prevalent, with toilets being blocked, etc., 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 and that has caused some service issues. Yeah, that's pretty much us there. You can see customer service is pretty steady. You notice January, February, we're driving SKs. That's simply a matter of generally working less hours, although hours are up slightly in December. And note the one significant safety event in December. Yeah, the vandalism issues up in January, and there's more details elsewhere on that. Cost saving initiatives. So I will now hand over to Kerry, and he can talk you through building the property and where we are there.
Morning, Kerry.
Morning, everyone. On page 17 with the building report for a start. Yeah, it's still quite flat in the building market in the Huronui, and when you compare it to other Canterbury regions, we're less building activity in comparison. Sometimes we do follow a little bit behind Waimak and Selwyn and the like, but yeah, it's a little bit noticeable at the moment that we're relatively quiet. And there's been quite a bit of work going on with the Granny Flats legislation that's just come out. It's on tip of a lot of people's minds, and the final details are out and it's in law now. And what that basically means is that you can build a granny flat on pretty much any site, rural or residential in the Huronui, or any site in New Zealand actually that's rural or residential. So you're now entitled to have a granny flat up to 70 square metres internal floor area. Must be standalone, must be new, 2 metres from the boundary, side and front and back boundaries. And it's got to be of light timber framed or metal construction, so light timber framed studs or metal frame studs. Yeah, so we're doing there's a bit of information on the web page because there's a lot of misinformation out there because you have to get a PIM still, which is a project information memorandum, so we can highlight any hazards and that sort of thing. Planning can confirm that it complies with those basic rules. And so we have an opportunity to charge development contributions as well. And the other interesting thing is that they don't have to comply with the Hanmer Springs design standards, which is quite a big departure from what we're used to. So yeah, the colours and the shapes and the roof slopes and things don't apply to granny flats because they've got a national environmental standard rule that's come out. So that was a bit of a shock. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of interest about it, but it's got to follow the rules because if they don't get a PIM, for example, or if they're slightly oversized, then they'll need to get a certificate of acceptance or a building consent either before or after the fact. So it's going to be quite messy if they.
Sorry, might be my naivety. Thanks, Kerry. So they can anywhere in the Huronui and rural or residential, and they don't need to meet design standards, say in Hanmer Springs. Do they still need to meet like snow loading and wind and that sort of drama that might have different effects across parts of our community, you know, wind loading or whatever you call it?
Sure, through the chair, yeah, they definitely, I've got to mention, they all still need to comply with building code. So yeah, that's a bottom line. They all need to be built by LBPs, designed and built by LBPs, and the building code compliance, that's the bottom line, they've got to achieve that. So there is some enforcement powers in there that line isn't met, but generally council is out of the picture on it. But the homeowner can involve us if they do get into some trouble, but it's probably not our preference. It's probably preference that builders step up, do it right, and then it will work well.
But they can paint it pink in Hanmer Springs, is that what you're saying?
Yes, potentially, yep. Yeah, so there is a small risk there.
My understanding is that that information needs to be kept? Is it for the life of the building or?
Through the chair, the council still has the role of accepting information at design stage and also at the end. Within 20 days of the granny flat being completed, the owner has to submit a full as-built set of plans, the LBP record, electrical certificate, all that. We have to file that away, and that is kept for the life of the building. Yeah. So we still have good records. People, when they get a limb, they'll know whether the granny flat's got a PIM and whether it's got a completion, and so that'll be quite clear, I hope.
So just one other thing quickly, you said Hammer Springs, it doesn't have to fit with your design standards. Is Mount Life the same, do you know?
Through the chair, yeah, if that's got design standards, yes, that will be the same. Covenants though will still apply. So if there's some covenants on the title, they'll still need to comply with that through the private arrangement, but district plan requirements are completely don't apply to the granny flat only a granny flat. So it must be a granny flat.
Could I just ask you, you probably do your best of this one, there's still confusion there now between granny flat, tiny house, this sort of thing, maybe you could help us out there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the granny flat exemption doesn't really fix the tiny home type issue because tiny homes are really vehicles on wheels, where a granny flat or a standalone dwelling is actual dwelling, foundations, compliant with building code. So tiny homes, they're still in that area of whether it's a building or vehicle, doesn't really fix that. Saying that some people may choose to build a granny flat now than buy a tiny home. You know, so we might get more granny flats and tiny homes, which is potentially going to be easier for us to determine what they are. So yeah, it could resolve a little bit of that.
You see a situation where if people buy you see a situation where people start putting piles under tiny homes.
Yes, if they do that, they'll need a building consent because this has to be newly built after the 12th of January. So they can't retrofit anything, they can't change the use of anything, it's got to be new. So it doesn't fix any existing non-compliant legal dwellings out there. But yeah.
It's really opened up the building. Vince,
How many?
Tom, and nothing, Dave.
Oh,
How many are allowed to be on a?
good question. According to the NES, you're only allowed one additional granny flat per property. But if the underlying district plan rules allows for more dwellings, for example, farms, that they allow quite a few dwellings because they're bigger, then you will be able to use the building consent exemption as many times as you like. So if you're allowed 20 houses on your farm, then you, as long as you want to build less than 70 square metres, you can use the granny flat exemption 20 times. But in general, it's one, the planning exemption allows for one granny flat per property, whether it's residential or rural, unless the underlying district plan rules allow for more.
Tom was next to the Dave.
Yeah, can you sell the granny flat and the land on it? Is that permitted? Does that affect that subdivision of the section?
Through the chair, I don't believe you can subdivide it. It's a dependent relative unit or a standalone relative unit but you can rent it out. It doesn't have to be for a granny. So, but no, there's no provision for subdivision at this stage. We may get people asking to subdivide, but that might be more of a question to the planning officer that comes later on. Yeah.
And where there are covenants on the land that says that it shall only be one dwelling house.
Through the chair, then that means they're only allowed to build one, unless the council won't tell them they can't, but the private developer could have a say about that. Yeah, but they will still apply, yes. So some subdividers may have that on there, one dwelling, or they may have not even thought about granny flats until now because they've always relied on their planning rules to prevent too many houses going on the property. So now it's not something they need to think about, if they want to prevent that.
So being a pragmatic person, so I'm trying to fix the tiny homes and so if someone had a tiny home on their property, they took it off the property and then applied to put it back on. Does it have to be a new build, or could they, relocate or could you relocate a smaller building onto your property? Because there could be quite a market of someone bringing in a building that's near new of the right, you know, can you, or does it have to be built new from that day?
Through the chair, it has to be built new from that day, can't be relocated, can't be an old building, can be built in a yard in town from that day. So built in a new yard, relocated out to the Huranui, that's fine, as long as you've got a PIN after that date for the prior to the start. So unfortunately, it doesn't cater for existing, it's got to be new, standalone, built by an LVP. And a lot of these tiny homes aren't built by LVPs, so that would exclude them almost straight away.
So do we take it that any issues that were in place before with tiny homes are still an issue?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It hasn't fixed the tiny home whatsoever. What it is doing is it's trying to increase the number of housing in New Zealand to try and fix that problem. I think that's the main driver behind this, is to get more houses into New Zealand. That's where the government's going on this.
Probably been answered, but I missed it. Just for clarity, do you have to have an existing building on the property to build a granny flat on?
Through the chair, this is a very good question. Under the planning exemption, you must have an existing dwelling on the property to build your granny flat. But under the building exemption, it doesn't say that. So technically, you could buy a section in Amberley, build a granny flat under the building exemption, because you're allowed to build it under the underlying district plan rules. So it can apply for a first house on a new section, as long as it meets the criteria under 70 LDP built new. So yeah, it's not necessarily a second dwelling. Yeah.
Through the chair, can I just clarify that? Can you clarify that for me? Just so I understand, you're telling me that technically this council is acceptable so long as it complies to 3604 and any other sub cons, that on a new site we can put one of these up under 70 square, being the living area or the footprint, you know. Is that my understanding? What you just
through the chair, that's exactly the right, because when you buy a section, you're allowed to a dwelling on it. So the planning rules allow it, and you can use the building exemption for not needing a building consent for that, because it doesn't say it needs to be a second dwelling in the building consent exemption. So yeah, it does allow for that.
Supplementary through the chair, but you still have to comply for your septic tank and all the rest of that stuff like normal, like everything else that's we'd be playing through in accordance.
Yeah, through the chair, all the other plumbing and drainage and everything is all included as the exemption. There's no inspections or processing or anything like that. But you will need your normal approvals from us for connections and new sewer, new water, that sort of thing. And if you do the septic tank, that would all be included in the exemption.
Through the chair, just clarify if that's, did I hear you correctly? The septic tank will be excluded if it's new on the site with the new site.
Through the chair, the septic tank is included as part of the exemption, so no consent required. It's all part of the exemption.
Just to be clear, Kerry, that would be no building consent required.
No building consent.
You might still require a consent.
So that's the word I believe here, because that was misleading. Sorry, through the chair, I'll ask a question again. Would we be clarify that the septic tank and services, would they need to be resource consented beforehand?
Through the chair, yeah. If the regional rules prevent you from having a septic tank on that site, then they still apply. Yep. The regional rules still apply in the planning exemption. But if you were doing it as a permitted activity, i.e. a rural site, then you would have to be able to do a septic tank as of right. But of course, all the normal regional rules will still apply to the granny flats. So it doesn't really fix a granny flat in, say, Colverton that needs a septic tank, or Wai or Rotherham. No, it doesn't really help us with that.
Through the chair, you've left a question pop up. So if I've got an existing and I'm connecting to the existing, what's the status then?
Through the chair, yeah, you can connect into the existing septic tank as long as that has got an allowance for the extra granny flat, and as long as that complies with the regional rule as well. So if the existing septic tank had enough capacity for the extra 2 bedrooms, then you could connect that in no problem at all. Yeah, but if you had to upgrade it, then you probably need reasonable consent for the smaller sites. But for the bigger sites, you won't need a reasonable consent.
That's your question, it's answered the question I was asking.
Sorry, Gary. Carry
on. Sorry, yeah, and the rest of the stats here, there's about $32 million worth of building work carried out in the Huranui until this point, this year, this financial year.
Just a question there. the December, January, we wouldn't, something's out of whack there.
Sorry, that should be millions.
The first two columns.
Yeah, December, yeah, that is, you mean the million, 5.15 million is spent on building work, sorry, it should say millions here.
Right.
Yeah, it's not clear, sorry, and 12 million in January. So, yeah, December was fairly quiet, obviously, but picked up again in January. Yeah, so, yeah, 89 to 77% of consents have RFIs still, so there's quite a still high need for us to ask for information on building consents and that sort of thing. And we carried out 2,108 inspections so far this financial year, and we've failed about 15% of those inspections in the year-to-date average. Some of the challenges and risks, we are transitioning from the Simply portal and the GoGet processing system into the new Datascape system. And we have one team member full-time developing that and getting up to speed. So that is going quite well, but it has been delayed in what we were expecting to sign up on that. But hopefully within the next month or two, we should be all go there. So that should improve our front-end application portal and our more streamlined process here. It will be one system. So we're hoping that will go quite well.
Thank you, Kerry. I've just got a question coming from Tom.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Gary. The building inspections failed. We got 17% in December and 13% in January. Is that the normal sort of figure? I think with all the rules, everyone knows all the rules and regulations, and all these plans have got to be submitted and what have you, and yet that seems to me, as a layman, to be a high failure rate. It feels as though, you know, when everyone knows everything that's in place, it seems a high failure rate to me.
Yeah, through the chair, it's sort of between 11 and 20% is sort of average New Zealand wide. It is quite high, and believe it or not, that doesn't take into account the inspections that haven't been passed, but just not finished or not done right, that we can check next inspection. There's another 30% of those, roughly. So, you know, we try and only fail things where we can't see it on the next inspection. So this is quite the low end of it, really. Most of the other ones are, if you can do that, we'll look at the next inspection, we'll give them a pass provisionally. So, you know, there's a lot more than the 15% in general. Yeah, the core knowledge is there, but there's still quite low knowledge on the finer parts of the building really, by our LBPs and designers. So yeah, there's still a bit of work to do there. Yeah, so, but yes, that number is normal.
Because the publicity that we've had is that the industry itself can police itself. You know, the publicity is that we have all these people out there who can police themselves, who know what they're doing and everything else like that. And the you know, the impression is that the councils are actually being awkward and stopping things. But this would these sort of figures would appear to me to indicate that there is an issue out there, that these builders and designers are not actually achieving the high standards that they profess that they are.
Through the chair, you're probably right. We do see the sharp end of it in our area, and yeah, there's a bit of work to do. I am a bit worried on the granny flat side of things because of this, because they're failing when they're being inspected. So when they're not being inspected, there's a higher risk that potentially things can go wrong. But I've got to look at the positive side as well, that they're providing more housing and what have you, but there's a downside that there's a high risk of someone getting something that's not right. But yeah, there's, yeah, a lot of people think it's going okay, but that's because they've been well processed and inspected up until this point. So, you know, that's probably why we don't have trouble with our buildings. We don't think about leaking buildings too much anymore, or the roof falling in. It's because we've got quite good standards and systems. So that's been tested now by the government, I guess, with the granny flats. Builders have got to step up, otherwise it'll be probably full, I'm guessing. But yeah, it's a test, I guess. Yeah.
Through the chair, I might make a statement to be realised. I think a lot of it comes down to the design to start with, really. If the design is inadequate, you're going to have failure. I've been in construction for 40 years, so I've got a rough idea about that one. It is always, it comes down to poor design and execution. Yeah, it is a sign.
And on that, I'll just note that 77% of the consensus submitted yet an RFI. So there's some information that's lacking at that initial stage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Karen, just got a question, councillor
How are
Stokes.
you managing with your budgets, Matt, with the starter scape when you've got to put an extra, really have a person full time on it? There's a cost, isn't there?
That is affecting our budgets, obviously. So we are a bit quieter at the moment, so we've got a bit of a resource to put into it. But saying that, it doesn't help the bottom line too much. So yeah, we have ups and down years, and so this is probably one of those years that may not be enough.
I've got a question for Hamish. How is it going in other departments, the Datascape? Is it fitting in all right, or are you having problems?
No, we're getting there. I mean, like all these things, they take a while to bed in. Just on this particular issue, I mean, we have a cost recovery agreement with Datascape in the building planning area because their modules, they're late delivering them. So we've had to incur cost, and we get the cost back from Datascape. So that's part of our initial agreement. When they couldn't deliver those modules in time. So Kerry is seeing an impact at the moment, but the money come in. Overall, whenever you change a system like this, you do incur some cost because it's slowly go up to speed, it changes the way that we do things, etc. So we're alters it now, but
So just something, Keitri, how long do you think this is the life of the Datascape? Because if we next thing another 5 years we're changing again, or
so our previous system that we used, Magic, we were there for 30 plus years on Magic. So this is a generational cost, in my view.
Through the chair, I have a question for Kerry. Kerry, do you anticipate more modular homes coming into it? The trucked-in jobs coming in here more? Do you think that's where it's going to be?
Through the chair, for the granny flats, I do see a lot of that as a potential, because those companies I'm seeing are promoting it quite a bit. The new transportable building yard in Christchurch, transported that. I think that's going to be a good solution. For the normal homes, I don't see too much of it, to be honest, yet. It's been talked about for years and years, but it really hasn't grabbed a lot of people, and I don't know why, because it is, it's a great thing. Build it in the yard or inside the shed and bring it out, but it doesn't seem to put on much apart from the really small portacom type buildings.
Kerry, could I ask a question around this? The outsourcing. We spoke about this a while ago about companies setting up almost picking below fruit. With us outsourcing, are we not running the risk of either encouraging opposition or leaking work?
I think we're all good. We've got two really good contractors, which are like our team, and they get it done just as fast and as well as we can. So they've been our contractors for years, so we treat them like a team member. So they're not like a big corporate company where we're just throwing it out.
So we're not talking about the companies that are setting up.
No. These are just a couple of guys working from home that helping us out, sort of thing. Yeah.
In fact, through you, Mr. Chair, this could actually be beneficial because normally when building consent numbers are lean, we struggle to put work to our contractors, therefore they struggle to put food on the table. At the moment, we're able to put work out to them, which frees up resource for Datascape, and so keeps them on. Normally, if contractors start to get too skinny, they start looking for other people to service, and when they do that, when we're busy and we want them, they say, sorry, I'm busy with someone else now. So, it's probably a bit of a positive at the moment.
I have a question.
Through the chair, a compliment to the building team for dumbass using that simply or whatever it is. My builder didn't want to go near it, putting a consent in because it was told me to do it. It was too hard. But I was pleased that the building consent team did have problems as well as I did. But Councillor Barnes used to tell me it was a bit hard. So I did struggle with it. just, I don't know, if it's internet connectivity or that the building team were very helpful, so just a compliment to them.
Thanks, Dave. Transmara, yeah.
Just curiosity more than anything, Kerry, I just want to go back to the summary and then the metrics and, you know, the building consent volumes are down. And the year-to-date figure is 277. Like how down's down? You know, do we know what our year-to-date might have been this time last year?
Chair, I haven't got that number, but it's probably, I would say about 20 to 30% down. Yeah. So, yeah, but yeah, I'd have to get you the exact numbers to be sure on that. But yeah, it's, the housing numbers are definitely down, the new housing, which is really where the bulk of the work is, yeah. But, you know, you probably see there's a lot of sections being developed, so it's got the sign that it's sort of about to increase. You know, there's a lot of sections in Hanmer and Amberley coming on stream, but there's just a bit of a lull at the moment, which we're in.
And sorry, Bob, and that's probably a seasonal thing as well, do you think? You know, like people Christmas holidays, or you know, like is it a pick me up that people as opposed to the economic status, but you know, is it a general pick me up that people out of Christmas will get out or out of holiday breaks?
Definitely January and February are definitely our quietest months, and after that people, as you say, start to get moving again. So yeah, it is it's and just looking at our neighbours and how busy they are, you know, it doesn't take long for that to affect us as well. That's what I've found in the past. We are sometimes a bit different. Either we're busy and they're quiet, but it just takes I don't know why, but just takes a month or 2 or 6 months sometimes to we see the same effect.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand the, you know, flexibility. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to property on page 18. Here that I've been busy on completing work requests there this month. We've done a lot of little jobs all at once around social housing, heating doors, windows, that sort of thing. So they've been flat out doing that. The social housing wait list is still got 34 on it, which is still quite high. All our social housing is full. And we had a little bit of damage and vandalism at Queen Mary still, which is pretty much ongoing, regular there. Yeah, the challenges and risks. We're still getting some overstayers and some poor behaviour at our camping grounds, our local camping grounds to here. So we've had a bit of increased enforcement and monitoring there. We have, we've got several expired leases and that sort of thing we're trying to rectify and improve on. Upcoming activities on page 19. There's a whole lot of things that we're doing there at the moment, the team are working on. Bulk of it is on leases and license renewals and fee renewals. We also got a number of buildings that haven't got code compliance certificates that we're working on as well, 25 of those. And as you see on the back of there, there's some snapshots of some photos. Now Beach, we've had some constantly falling down there, fences and things falling down the cliff, some damage with tree falls and some fences that need to be replaced. And you see on page 20 there, we've got the honesty boxes for the Amberley Beach camping ground installed. And we've installed some data loggers at the Amberley pool to try and ascertain the ventilation system needed for the Amberley pool. You may have realised that it's got some real problems with ventilation due to the fan failures. So we're doing some work there to try and see what the environment is on these really hot days, even though we haven't had a lot lately, but it'll give us defined parameters on what sort of system we may need to go out to need to purchase to cater that. And in the middle there's a photo of the offending hot water cylinder at the tin shed that boiled all weekend and made the kitchen into a sauna, or worse, times 10. But that's now been replaced, and a lot of other bits and bobs there with general maintenance on our buildings with photos.
Can I just go back to Pedro South? What the replacement glass and things like that, which causes you different? Are we replacing windows and buildings that are going to be demolished, or are these ones that we are trying to maintain their standard?
Through the chair, these are the ones that are going to be demolished, but we're not putting glass back, we're just flying them up and
Right,
keeping
just
people
flying them
out.
up.
Yeah, yeah, so.
Just a comment there about when the man was in town, we were putting windows
Oh.
back in, I thought, well.
So there might be one in North Queen Mary that has been replaced as well, but generally the ones that are going to be demolished, we're not putting glass back, no.
So,
But the
we
ones,
also have an idea of what that's costing us yet, or roughly?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused by this comment, Mr. Chair. I think there needs to be a little bit more work done on this because Queen Mary South, there's very little glass left in Queen Mary South, and most of it's plywood anyway. So I suspect that this comment refers to the historic reserve and the buildings there rather than Queen Mary South.
Through the chair, Kerry, I believe we have a contractions security arrangement in the Hanmer region, is that right?
for the Queen Mary?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why are they not addressing this issue more accurately instead of trying to charge us more funds? Because the contract should be pretty tight, one would assume.
So the contractor is contracted to patrol the area and respond to alarms. And so they patrol the area, respond to alarms. And that's what the contract's for.
Right. Through the chair, it'd be interesting to see the gosh, what do I call them? The timesheets within regards to the patrolling. Do we have access to any of that information, or we're just taking their words for it? Just that there's an ongoing thing that we see a lot of. So the question is, are they doing the job?
Through the chair, I haven't seen them, but we could ask for those. I'm assuming we could get those, no problem.
They're called response sheets, we would call them. Could we please put that just to have clarified whether or not we're getting value for money from this contractor?
Thank you. I mean,
Thank you.
bearing in mind that it's a large site with a lot of corners, vegetation and everything else. It's hard enough to stop vandals at the west public door, you know, in a busy domain sometimes. I had a question coming up on the screen.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, Kevin, with all of these acts of vandalism that occurred, are they reported to the New Zealand Police? Is every one of those things reported through to New Zealand Police?
Yeah, through the chair, generally, yes, they are reported, yeah.
Because obviously it's really important for our rural policing communities to be adequately informed of what crimes are being committed on their patches. And if they're not being reported, then the police are not actually accurately collecting the information of damage and criminality occurring in their region, which could have a negative impact on police staffing in the future. So any report like this, it would be my suggestion New Zealand Police are informed of it, that a crime is recorded and reported, and it will push New Zealand Police to respond appropriately.
Thank you.
Just on the hall review in Cheviot, the courthouse, the person that was looking at moving it's walked away with just the cost of it all. It's just so, we haven't got any budgets in our community for demolition or anything, so I suppose we just have to stay there. Because we haven't got the money to do anything with it. We've got nothing in our budgets. And I see the costs which are put down, it's 40 odd thousand, well, that'd be a big percentage of our local amenity rate.
Yeah, any other?
So I'm just raising it, you know, it's, we haven't got a home for it because it just got too hard to do the cost of it. And so I suppose we'll just have to stay sitting there. Or is there other ways of removing it?
I do know once upon a time, it's hard work for fire brigades finding suitable places for their training. That's an option.
This one's a bit tricky because it's attached to the
Oh,
one we want to
of
keep.
course it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that that's something that requires some discussion in the paper to come forward rather than spitballing ideas at the moment.
Any further questions for Kerry? Thank you. So now we're going to go to our road, Charlie. 18. Okay.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Well, yeah, so there was a fair bit of work completed in December and into January. Obviously, we take it off in December with the brownout period taking place around the 17th of December for all the TM and people to be off the roads. We've completed about 15,000 square metres of pre-reseal stabilisation this season, which is a little bit lower for pre-reseal repairs this season than the last two. Mostly that's due to road selection. So we've got a couple more second coat seals this year as opposed to roads that are in a pretty poor state and require extensive treatment before sealing. We've also got an additional 14,000 square metres of maintenance stabilising to be completed. This is a first, I think, for us. I don't think we've ever managed to do this amount of maintenance stabilising after a pre-reseal season. So if we split them in two, you've got your pre-reseal repairs, which is the driving force behind most of the roading spend. And then on the other side, you've got maintenance stabilising, where we've never really had any time to do it or resource to do it. And we have both of those things at our disposal this season. So we've got a program that works for about 14,000 squares. It works out to be about 12,000 squares of stabilising and 1,700 odd squares of dig outs to do across the network, which we are using the additional funding that we received. So at the tail end of last year, I managed to secure an extra $1.5 million of funding from NZTA. Like Hamish alluded to earlier, this is based on the rate overhang, because when the budgets were set, we had low cost, low risk allocation. We didn't get any low cost, low risk, but we still had the rates for it. So the additional money that we've been able to secure, we've been able to secure within our existing budget portfolio. We haven't had to come back and ask for more money to fund match NZTA. And what we've done with that, we've split it up. We've carved the 1.5 million into three chunks. One chunk of 800,000 for seal pavement maintenance, one chunk for metalling, which will take care of Clarence Valley and a couple of the other hotspot roads like Virginia, Sherwood, which we wouldn't have been able to afford to do this season, and an additional 300 to keep the wheelie digger going, because we all know that that's making a huge amount of difference, you know, looking at the rain and how little flooding we've had.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, that was me.
I know you wait till I look down.
Can I just clarify, would the fact that funding was available also be down to the fact, due to the fact that we've been good on delivery?
Yes, Mr. Chair, yes, so quote unquote our investment advisor was we will only give money to people we know who will spend it and have got a track record for being able to spend the additional money that they've been given. And I think hand in hand with that is our relationship with them as well.
I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that that's a very strong case on what we're doing around the district and what you've brought to it, organising and that relationship building. So, thank you.
Moving on to the metrics, December was a little bit quieter in terms of customer service requests. January was busy. January was busy mostly because of the Mutnell Beach closure. I think out of those 86 service requests, 30 of them were related to the Mutnell Beach road closure, which I think we've managed to smooth over and work out with all of the affected people for the most part, which takes our total to about 550 CSRs received, with just shy of that amount closed. All of the ones that are open or that are overhang at the moment are related to streetlights. We've got quite a large time frame for streetlight completion as per the contract. So they've got 20 working days to basically resolve, but I mean, if they're ordering parts, then some of those just go on hold. Looking at our financials, we're about 6.6 million, so a little over halfway across the whole budget set. With the challenges of Datascape and the financial reporting, so the financial data claim line that you see there, that's my tracking of project expenditure. Then you've got the cord claim beneath it, so month-on-month stat. That's what the cord claim component is, based after their claim has been processed and any QA checks have been done by us. And just in comparison to the bottom table, that's the actual expenditure out of Datascape. So just want to highlight why there's some differentiation between the numbers, because they don't actually all line up nicely. So that's the reason why I keep quite a good handle on our budget expenditure at a line item level. And yeah, that's not necessarily always shown through Datascape at the moment, or it's not easy to show through Datascape. So I just wanted to highlight those discrepancies. And looking through the rest of the metrics there, we've got the usual edge marker replacements and seal potholes repairs. January was pretty busy for seal potholes, partly due to the detour on Douglas Road, partly due to rain.
Sorry for interrupting, I was going to skip back to the top there again, we've got the bottom. We've got extra funding for the Amberley detour route, which repairs will be started and completed in February. Can you just elaborate on that? Is that going to be work done by our contractor? And if so, will it take away from any business as usual, or is it treated as a separate piece of work for a contractor? If you can just walk us through that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So the detour routes is a bit of a contentious subject. We've had a long-standing agreement. It was one of the first things that we got accomplished when I took over the roading team, was to establish detour routes, and this is predefined routes that were agreed with NZTA to take vehicular traffic on any given road at specific junctions across the network when there's a closure of the state highway. Unless there is a really good reason for us to say no, like a structure that can't take a 50 max vehicle or something similar, there is really no reason why we can say no to NZTA detouring traffic onto our roads. So the Douglas Road, Mount Brown, across to George's has been a long-standing detour with NZTA. There's a closure north of Amberley, between Amberley and Waipara. And what we should have done, which we didn't do, which is do a joint drive over of that road before the detour started. So they did, which was great. So after the second or third day, we went out with them again. We videoed it with them again. We took some locations of start fails, marked some repairs up, and then we did that again towards the end. So we've put that into the process now, but it wasn't there initially, and that was more an oversight more than anything else. And at the end of that, we presented a spreadsheet. We worked out engineer's estimate based on what type of failure there was and how we were going to remediate. We put those costs to NZTA, and they said, "Cool, we'll write you a check, go and get it sorted." So we went to our maintenance contractor initially, discussed treatment methodologies, agreed on a resource to be able to do it, and they'll do it in isolation. So outside of the normal maintenance work that they would normally be doing, but out of a separate funding stream. And it's not taking a resource off the network, it's using the resource that was going to be doing the Princess Street rehab, just bringing them onto the network a couple of weeks ago.
Chair. With the repairs, let's just use the Ring Road, the Douglas, George's, etc. I noticed most of the failures on one section of the road to the left, more to anywhere else. With the arrangements we put into play with NZTA, are we going to repair the road, because they were clip-ons, those little add-ons that have failed? The road used to be a lot narrower. And are we going to repair them up to the same grade as the main road, or are we going to repair back to the patched road section with the extension style that was used, hence the failure in those areas? That was definitely not designed to take because of the amount of heat and it took and everything else.
Through the chair, so all of the repairs that have been marked up are going to be a 450 dig out, which is the 450 dig out, which is the best treatment. And again, it's a little bit of another bone of contention. It's not the volume of traffic either; it's the weight. So I mean, it's not everyone seems to focus on it. It's never designed to take that much. Well, actually, it's the vehicles are fine. It's the trucks that are hammering the shoulders that are the issue. And all it's done is it accelerated the deterioration of what would have happened anyway. And by a 450 dig out, we're negating all of those future issues.
Thank you.
Through the chair. In relation to the repairs to a detour, is there a time frame in place, the expectation that they'll be completed? I know you've mentioned it'll be outside the scope of normal work. Is there an agreed time frame for each of these as they occur?
Through Mr. Chair, no, there isn't. So under the detour, whoever is using the detour route would maintain it. So Downer went and did some hot mix repairs to some of the worst section during the detour. And then when basically we decided to do the repairs because we wanted to have some assurances that the repairs would be done right. It's up to us to set that time frame afterwards. So as soon as reasonably practical, we would do. But it comes down to time and resource.
Thank you.
I've got Vince and
With all these repairs and that, from what I've seen around the district, they never really work. You know, there's a lot where we've done it, patches and stuff, give it a year and it's all just, you know, I've just got concerns about it, you know yourself, you drive around and you can see, we fixed that a couple of years ago, but it's given in again. And I'm just worried about that sort of thing, like those roads will just end up a whole patchwork.
Through Mr. Chair, so it depends on the treatment type. I mean, we gamble with stabilising quite a lot. There's some roads that we stabilise because it's cheap, and there's some roads that we dig out because we know better. Stabilising is the first option, should always be the first option. A dig out is an end of life pavement repair. If we're digging out every repair, then I probably need some more money. Our dig outs typically don't fail, and our stabies have a really good success rate. I think there's a lot of sunken trenches. I think there's a few isolated areas that we've sealed and they've stripped, and it's been a surface issue rather than a subgrade issue. But I mean, out of the thousands and thousands of square meters of repairs that we do, I think generally we have a pretty good failure rate.
Just to supplement on it, with the weather we're getting, you know, there's a lot of the work going to fail because, you know, the conditions aren't right, like the substructure or what you're working on will be all wet with all the weather we're having, and it never gets a chance to dry out, and then you chuck your fill in and you put it in, but you've got this like cancer sitting inside, and then after a year, it's, you know, I just worry about the weather this year for doing a lot of this work. That is there going to be a lot of failures, you know, because we haven't had a week of really hot weather where, you know, to get a good seal, you've got to have the ground heat up so you get the penetration. And really, our climate this year hasn't really been ideal for that sort of thing, has it?
Mr. Chair, no, the weather's been pretty average.
Yeah, I know. I'm just getting worried that we do all this work and then we're sitting back here next year saying, oh.
I mean, probably the silver lining in that is that there's a defect period. So I mean, if it fails, it'll get fixed and it won't be on our dime.
But the contractor only did that for so long.
a question from Dave and a question, and then I think I've got a bit from Tom as well.
I'm not an expert at roading at all, as you know, but I did get sent some information that actually got posted on the Facebook page from the guy that was the head of the commercial, you know, which is the God Squad up here, but he was the head of the North Island, and he put a post about the trucks and that going on the road, and what Charlie said, it's the trucks that are causing the damage and the configuration of the trucks and the poor loading of the trucks or whatever. So whether there's a learning from that is that we need to be, if there's a major detour that the boys up at Glasnevin are actually monitoring the trucks. And I don't know if they were, how much, and they probably didn't. So if I'd done a bit of work up there and, you know, monitor the trucks, we could have saved a lot of damage. The next thing, probably in our area, and I'm watching it too, you know, Limeworks Road. Not sure if it's Chris, been doing wheelies on there on the way home and causing a lot of damage on the new pavements. And I scared the shit out of me when we were going to re-mill it again. So I do wonder if we're doing a resealing, sealing like wherever these idiots arrive out of nowhere in the middle of the night. We should work in with the police on those sections and get a whole lot of those camera signs put up. Maybe it's worth it. Having a camera there hidden to do it, because how many the question is, how many reseals are actually getting the burnouts done on? And how, I know the limestone work one has failed and it's gonna have to be redone, isn't it?
Through Mr. Chair, that was the only one that I'm aware of this season. And I wasn't aware of any last season that were vandalised or lack of words by the races. But I mean, I probably go back to the silver lining there was it has to pass a certain amount of checks before we pay for it. And if it doesn't, so that was again got fixed and it wasn't allowed on.
Through the chair, just to answer that, David, the actual work was done twice on the corner of the road, and there was no howlies on that. Come down to my corner and it gets absolutely hammered. But no, that particular, you're talking about where it comes onto Pyramid Valley Road, that the contractor had to redo that, didn't they?
It's got to be done again, isn't it?
It's been done already.
It's done twice, yeah.
It was done twice, but I don't. It wasn't all boy races there. There was what looks like a big truck has done a UE there as well, which was the actual reason we did it.
Was pretty recent.
The size of the tractors operating in that community area particularly are causing a lot of heaving on those corners.
Thank you. Tom had a question.
Oh yeah, Clarence Valley Road, I see you've got some more work planned there. Can you give us some details of that? Clarence Valley Road has been so busy this season, and I think partly because of the fact the forests are closed, that people are actually going over the back for more recreation because the forests are closed. But yeah, I just wondered if you can tell me what's going on.
Through Mr. Chair, I've got it coming up in the upcoming activity section at the end.
Right.
That's right.
I think we're closing on Sprake. I think it's Charlie a fair crack to get through his report and ask questions towards the end.
Brilliant. And we're looking at the amount of cubic material of metal placed on the roads this season. We're at 24,000 cube, which is again on par with what we've done for the last 2 years. That will probably go up quite significantly with the extra money that we've allocated to carrying out maintenance metal. Looking through the challenges and risks. So we've had 2 rehabs this season. One of those being Medbury Road, and one of them being Muttnell Beach Road. Medbury Road was a 100 mil on average granular overlay. That finished up last week. It was sealed last Friday and it's reopened now. Our rehabs are quite hard for our contractor to finish. They require a 95th percentile of NASRA, which is roughness. It's quite a hard spec to achieve. It's the same spec that they use on state highways for rehabs. So when you're driving down the state highway and you come across a nice freshly built bit of road and it's beautiful. That's our spec for rehabs. So Medbury will be like that now, and Muttnell will be after. Muttnell was an area-wide stabilising. So it basically edge to edge, mill through, cement stabilised and resurfaced with some shape correction on some of the corners that had native super. That's a really challenging rehab to complete. Goes up through, I don't know if you guys have been up and over it, it goes up and over the hill, down around a couple of twisty turnies, and it's either side of a forestry block, so it's constantly in shade. There's been some pretty significant failures on that stretch of road in the last 3 years. We've patched and bandaged and done what we could to get by, and now we've basically rebuilt the whole road. We've done a lot of drainage work. We've got rid of a lot of trees. I'm working with the forestry owners to get to harvest that block 50 metres either side of the road so it actually sees some sunlight in winter, which will then help us not do so much gritting in winter, all going well. So they're very different and very challenging rehabs for their own reasons.
And then there's the, you know, the resource being able to do both. So it's been a really interesting pieces of work to oversee. Mutney was particularly noisy with the detour, because the detour is not great, for lack of better words, but there is no alternative. And whilst we're operating on both lanes at the same time, it's really difficult to get a window of opening that works. It was tracking really well. I think they were forecast to be out of there 2 weeks earlier than intended. And then it rained and didn't stop, and then stopped, and then rained again. So all of the progress that we've made by being efficient, we've lost in the weather. So we're back to slowing right down.
I've just a comment of as much as anything. Having driven both of those, it's one thing doing the alternative route on the bus where I didn't need to look where I was going. When I was driving out there for a meeting, I took a wrong turn and ended up at the farm. It was interesting. But I think that the biggest challenge that we had from the community was just making sure that all the affected people were contacted in time. And I believe the system's been set up where we can get that information. That was the key thing for people. When I was out at the meeting, the commentary was, yes, it might be a windy route, but they appreciated that it was well gravelled and good to travel on. It was just that nervousness, and it was an exceptional condition. And the other comments that they made were looking at the work that was being done, that it was going to be well worth it in the end, and their only real concern was that initial stage at the beginning when nobody knew when it might be open or closed, and just keeping them up to date. And I think it resolved those issues as well. But having gone through there to see the changes, and I've driven over it a lot of times, well worth the effort that's gone into it. So the community's really happy with that side of it.
Thanks. So do you think you'll be able to have it finished by the 26th, or do you think you'll have to extend?
I mean, it was always planned to be opened on the 2nd. I plan, hopefully, it was meant to be sealed this week, the second half. It was meant to be sealed on Thursday, Friday. Whether or not that still happens, I don't know.
Yeah, just because there's a tsunami of roads coming like what you're talking, where and they're really starting to show up now. You know, you drive a lot of the roads, you actually see they're getting the old railway tracks down them. In the wet weather, you get worse. You know, how are we going to cope with all that? You know, just for everyone around here, you don't have budgets, and you know, it's
Mr. Chair, I can tell you how we'll cope, but it'll be really uncomfortable. And it'll be more rehabs. But this is the whole point in investing in what we're trying to invest in now, is to sweat these failing roads as long as we can, and still provide, you know, a reasonable level of maintenance in the meantime.
Thanks, Charlie. I think we let Charlie get the finish line. And
yeah, so the reseal program for this year, we had scheduled just shy of 35 kilometres to reseal this year. 5k short of what we've calculated to be needing to be done every year to not be going backwards. So all of the pre-reseal repairs have been completed on those roads, and we're now, at time of writing, I think we're about 12.5, 13k's through. Now we're about 16k's through, and I've got no foreseeable, other than weather issues, to stop us finishing up this program by the 31st of March, as outlined in the contract. Looking at the insight section, going through, vegetation has been a bit of a nightmare. It rains, so stuff grows. We have been pretty fortunate in the last couple of years to get away with doing 2 full mows a year. I don't think we'll be in that position this year. I think we'll have to do 3 or at least 2.5, which we had budgeted for, but we've often used the additional mowing money, if there's some left over, to remove trees. So, you know, it's one thing will happen, whether it's mowing or some more trees will go. And yeah, looking at the program of work for the additional money. So we've got Inland and Leader Road. Leader Road will be closed for, I think it's scheduled for 2 weeks. To basically put the mill through. Obviously, it'll be open for residents, and there'll be the contractors doing that work pretty tight with the local community up there, so they'll have a system in place, but we're gonna do, I think it's about 7,000 square meters of stabilising through Leader Road. And less on inland than Kaikoura. So there's quite a lot of work still to do this season, considering it's February. I'm pretty ambitious that we'll get it all done.
That's a good way to make. Appreciate it, Chuck.
Just on the vegetation, I noticed there's a lot of bushy types of things that are growing right out, you know, and they can be on an inside corner and they drive traffic out on blind corners. Do you use any of those side, you know, you used to trim them back, you know, they're only, you know, they're not the stuff that the big tree chopper would attack, you know, but it stops vision. And that's getting quite bad around the district, you know.
Through Mr. Chair, so we haven't done any corridor trims for the last 2 years. What we've done is we've got rid of trees. So instead of doing side trims where most of that vegetation is privately owned or in private property, you mean like Cathedral Road, for example, most of the trees down there are privately owned. Stonyhurst, same deal. What we've done is we've got my field technician who runs around and removes them, cuts, pastes, does what he can do, basically as we become aware of them. So if he sees them, he'll just rip them out. But there's a corridor trim scheduled for March to do some of the roads that we haven't got to, and where some of those roads are privately owned vegetation, like
I just looking at one, Cheviot Golf Course. They're just wild plums, and they've grown right out. Of course, when they got plums on them, and it's right when people come out, and it's quite dangerous because it's just sweeping in the
Campbell.
No, the plum trees.
No, Campbell Road.
Yeah,
It's there now.
and there's it's right around the Sunclear Road. There's hundreds of them, and it's all those wild and plum. No one, the landowner doesn't own those. You know, they've just grown. Birds have dropped the seed, but it's getting quite bad around the whole district. I just noticed that those sort of things are, because they used to trim them a bit. I've even attacked them with the tractor myself and pushed them off the road because I thought, oh, I don't want to lose all the wing mirrors and the tractor with cars coming the other way, and you're on the wrong side of the road and you can't actually see if there's, and I worry about cyclists because if someone's on a push bike and you come around and you had to be,
if there's any
get cleaned up.
Just take a photo, send it to the office, and we'll get Craig up there to rip them out.
I'll give you some photos.
And then just lastly, looking at the upcoming plans, so Mutnow Beach, rehab to be complete, so I'm still hopeful that it'll be completed this week. And then reopen under temporary speed limits and awaiting all the line marking and touch-up stuff. 28th of February, we're heading into Princess Street. So after the wastewater upgrades, we'll be basically right behind the guys doing the water pipes. And then we'll be doing the dig out on that worst section of Princess Street, which again is being funded out of the extra money that we've got from NZTA. Late March, looking to get into Clarence Valley. So this is a two-step treatment for Clarence Valley. We're going to get up and crush a whole bunch of rotten rock. We're going to doze that over pretty much the whole length of Jack's Pass, and then go back up to the dock quarry and extract 32 and perform some maintenance metalling. All in, it's probably going to cost us about 350 grand. And then the sprayers will be spraying.
Thank you, Charlie. I think if anybody's got particular sites or whatever, we know where to find Charlie. We'll catch up with him. Okay.
Great, done.
Thank you very much, Charlie, and thank you again for the extra funding that you've managed for this. That's all going to make a great difference. I think we'll stop for a cup of tea now. Actually, we're ready to go. And welcome back. We're now going to go to page 23. and ask Alex to go through his report, through the works, operations and assets.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll get straight in there. Despite what I would call a year of intermittent or no summer, and the challenges that sit alongside of that, I think the team have done a fantastic job in dealing with those challenges, but overall there were no significant issues experienced, and the particular issues that were dealt with, I'll sort of cover those as we go forward. The key metrics, there's nothing really there that jumps out or is worthy of any particular discussion. Apart from the financial data, there's actually a line item missing in there, which talks about our water expenditure, and that expenditure was $294,000 per month as an average figure, as being described by others. We do have some teething issues with Datascape, which prevent us from being able to report exact figures per month, but our average monthly expenditure and the total expenditure remains on track. Around the challenges and risks, as you'd imagine, with particularly dry spells, we experienced our usual issues with water leaks, and as we've experienced this year, we've had the dry spells followed by intense rainfall, which causes us issues with our source water. The team have done a really good job in dealing with those challenges. However, we did experience a period of issues at our Blythe water scheme, as well as Hurunui 1 for the water leaks. So at the Blythe, we've had quite a few water leaks on our rising main, and that was caused by the frequent failure of that pipe. I have mentioned it in the previous reports. It was a trial pipe that was installed some 10 years ago, and obviously we're not getting the 80-year expected life out of that pipeline. So that has been replaced in the worst portions early in the month, early in December, and since then we've had no issues there. But yeah, obviously the customers on their scheme did experience frequent water loss. We did have a particular issue on our line out towards Seaview and Vulcan 1. So that was caused by a rock becoming jamming itself in one of our ball cocks. And we suspect that rock probably entered our reticulation system as part of a flow meter installation, probably about a year ago. And it has slowly made its way out and made its way into a brake pressure tank, and became lodged in there. Now the difficult part of identifying or finding that is the rock wasn't blocking the pipe entirely, so there was still water flow through our circulation, and all of our pressures were stable. All the pumps were still operating as one would expect, except we weren't getting the flows that we needed to sustain the demand. So we had to systemically go through about 15 odd kilometres of that reticulation section, and try to find this leak, and that sort of caused extensive water outages for some farmers in and around the Mottnau area. So since then we've rectified that issue. However, later in January there was a slightly, I guess, compounding issue for those properties. We are renewing our main pipeline, which is heading out towards Mottnau, and as part of that renewal we had to have further outages to cut the pipe over, which then caused some further water loss for those customers who had already been struggling. So some of those customers expressed their, I guess, concern and frustration with us. However, the pipeline has been renewed, and those issues are now all resolved.
Just a question.
It's quite stressing for those customers, because it's actually animal welfare issues. Because I know I had one in the Blythe, you know, he had stock cows and calves, that he thought they were going to die, you know, and he had, you know, and it got quite, you know, quite stressful. So, you know, it's quite, it is, you know, an outage, you can say, and it sounds all, but the people on the ground, they see their animals, you know, stressed and suffering, they get quite emotional. Well, I would too, you know, and I think we've got to realise that, and it's quite, you know, I had a couple of people ringing me that were quite emotional about it all, because about their livestock, really, animal welfare.
Yeah, that's, I imagine stress right through the whole crew too.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chair, we certainly understand the challenges that customers are faced, and we do apologise to them for the interruptions. We have challenging reticulation, especially in that area, as you're well aware of. We at the time we obviously made sure that wherever we could deliver water, we did. So we had our own water tanker with two staff operating, making water deliveries, and we brought in an external contractor to deliver water in both cases. The challenge that we do have is the terrain in this district, and a lot of those water tanks are simply inaccessible. And unfortunately, those properties don't maintain any of the tracks to the water tank, so we could make water deliveries. So we do have to look at the risk and the safety aspect of that, and if there's no way to deliver water to those reservoirs, unfortunately, physically not much that we can do. And our staff do work around the clock to try to resolve those issues, and some of those just due to the terrain take time to resolve.
Sorry, Dave, I had a question coming from Chris first, and then
Through the chair, do you think it's relative that maybe we start giving our staff some tools and maybe policy being drafted to allow us to be able to give the people who are going to be affected some notice? I'm sure that they were informed, but is there anything we can do that you think we could put into policy that would help prevent the stress on livestock? Being a livestock owner myself, I know what that's like. I wonder if there's some rumour or something, or considered, has it been?
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, we do have a water outage map on our website. So when we do have a water outage or prolonged water outage, those are posted on our website to tell people that there is an outage in that area. It is at times it's difficult for us to make a decision around when to send out a conserved water notice, because the conserved water notices are equally unpopular. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, where some people want the conserved water notices and other people don't.
So to me, the question, is it a policy? I'll reword it. Is there a policy within our organisation that manages that issue?
Through Mr. Chair, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then it's,
What?
oh, sorry, you carry on.
What compounded the Blythe one was main power disconnected the power as well, and it just, we had an outage with the water, the next thing main power turned the power off. So even when you guys fixed your water, there was still nothing to run it.
Through Mr. Chair, we did run out a generator, and obviously installed the generator there and got that going on top of it.
But it's just it's annoying when organisations don't talk to each other, that you guys didn't know that main power turned the power off, because then you could have had your generators there. It's sort of you think they should be more coordination and letting to know when the power's been turned off.
And Dave.
Probably a little bit more of a comment on that. I'd be pretty surprised if you were taking the tank of water for stock water, because the amount of water that you would need is excessive. But I suppose my thing is maybe the community and whatever, we need to design a policy around how many days storage on for your stock water have you actually got? And what is acceptable times that you've got the water down for? And I would suggest that these water schemes, and I know because I've had to upgrade a scheme on a system, they were designed in the 80s or 70s from different farming systems, that farmers also have to take some responsibility to have enough storage for 3 days of water. And then we may say, well, you've got 3 days to do something about it, you know, because, and then communication through, but you know, they are generically systems that, you know, are our risks. They're not designed for and then, you know, but the people is a difference, you know.
Just to counter that, it all sounds very good on paper, but usually when there's an outage, people aren't actually getting the water.
But they should have.
Before they realise.
They should have two tanks
Yeah,
of
but you could have
reserve.
been only getting half your water for the week before too. So even if you had your 3 days of supply and all that, sounds good, but then your tank's half empty when you start your 3 days, because you hadn't actually had the water. And so it sounds easy, oh yeah, so do you say you have to have 10 days supply, 20 days, you know, just that it's easy to have that, but then if you're buying 10 units of water and you're only getting 5 for the week before because there's been a problem in the scheme, which eventually collapses and then everyone knows about it, it gets quite difficult when you're starting with half empty glass.
But we're getting in the weeds, but Vince, you have 2 tanks that are turned off that you don't use.
Yeah, but when you're saying a large
I
supply,
don't want to get too much cross conversation. I think it's one of those situations that things do go wrong time to time, and the team's done their best and there'll be lessons learned. But I know tonight's the water liaison group, things like that's a good way to feedback through and out to the communities and you know, get an understanding of what can happen. So carry on, please.
Yes, so, Mr. Chair, I'll add one thing. So this council does have a policy around the 3 days of supply. So I believe in 2017, the council adopted the Three Waters bylaw, which clearly requires all customers connected to our rural networks or our restricted supplies to have 3 days of supply. There are certainly times where we do experience intermittent supply to some properties, but by and large, the biggest issue we have around our outages is that people simply do not comply with their requirements of the bylaw, by and large.
just 2 examples you're talking about that there was, the people weren't getting the flow because there was a rock stuck in the ball column. So how long did that go for before everyone realised? So the tanks will go down. I know the one that rang in over the Blythe, he had plenty of storage, but then there was breakdowns with that pipe failing all the time. And so his tanks never ever caught up again because you have a failure a week, 2 weeks ago, and it's out for a day. So the tank goes down a bit, the tanks, and then the next thing it happens again and again, then you have a complete outage and you're out of water. You know, it just gets, I know it's the nature of the beast, but it's just working for everyone.
Sounds like it's been a bit of a perfect storm. Chris, have you just got a quick comment?
That's very quick. I was just going to put it to you. Do you think it's a good time for us to consider a policy change to address some of these? Listening to what I'm hearing, knowing what I've dealt with myself, as the supply of water is intermittent, maybe it's time we consider looking at a more, I don't like the word term user-friendly, a more informative methodology, or maybe just change the look as times are evolving through the year.
Through Mr. Chair, it's probably not my place to determine whether the policy is required or not, but we can certainly make arrangements to notify customers based on thresholds that either this committee or the council may set. So as an example, if we have a period of low pressure or no flow, for an X amount of time, we could send out a message to our customers.
Supplementary, I think that would be prudent. Sounds like it would be, doesn't it?
Sorry, I was going to make a comment before, but I will make it now. But I guess my question is, Alex, I'm always impressed with the time, and I know we've heard some examples where things go wrong, but you know, as staff and as our community need to be aligned, I think that the question is really, are we doing all we can to make sure that we are doing the best we can, not for the majority of time, knowing all full well that there is always going to be an exceptional circumstance, the power goes off a day after the water didn't come through, you know, like we can't control those things, but can we control the controllables inside our mandate, and are we doing that? And I trust the integrity of the work that's been done to ensure that those times are worked through in a way that we are, you know, giving out information to our community as best we know over well that we're going to get 5% exception every now and again when it kicks us in the face.
And I assume the communication with those worst affected groups, you guys have been maintaining that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's certainly been a lot of communication, whether they've gone, as I would call it, through official channels. That's when a service request comes to council and we respond to that. And there has been also quite a high degree of communication that happens through unofficial channels, which is essentially our customers are calling our field staff directly for updates. So there was a lot of that that was happening through that entire period for both the Blythe and the Hurunui #1. So you know, a lot of our field staff are very diligent with their answer phone calls during and outside work hours and update the customers. But as with any fault that we have, where there's an extended outage, we do learn from those, and we don't respond to every single one in a perfect manner. But when we don't, we certainly do learnings, and we do adapt to make sure that we can, you know, we can do a better job for our customers going forward. Moving on, so with these heavy rain events, we experienced various ranges of poor raw water quality. So our team have responded really well in adjusting the water treatment plants to make sure that we retain compliance throughout all of our schemes. Obviously, probably getting ahead of myself, but we did have to issue a boil water notice for the Blythe water scheme this month, and that is because the UVT, or the transmittance, or the water's quality in able to transmit UV light has gone down below the thresholds. Well, it got close to the threshold, which requires us to implement a boil water notice. So it never went below it, but we took a precautionary measure and implemented the boil water notice regardless. John.
Thank you, Alex. Sorry to trouble you. On page 24, on the drinking water compliance, that top table there. Two comments really, basically. To achieve 100% across the whole of the region is phenomenal. And obviously you and your team to be complimented on that. But the slight question I have really, as a statistics teacher, statistically, that is almost impossible for such a wide area and such different plant and different places. To get 100% success is phenomenal. So either, well, I'm just wanting to express that surprise really. It's an amazing table of results.
Through Mr. Chair, yeah, thank you very much. It is, I guess, the fruit of this council's and previous council's investment into our infrastructure, and I guess the decisions made today and in the past to take a a really strong water safety approach. And we've, with that vision in the past and currently, we've been able to configure our equipment as well as enable our staff to be able to continue that work and achieve results.
Brilliant, well done.
So one of the things, I guess, it's not mentioned in this report, but I would like to mention around the challenges. One of our team unfortunately had a serious motor vehicle accident during the holiday break, and he rolled his vehicle up in the Emu Plains area, and he was seriously injured and was transported to Christchurch Hospital. He's now recovering well and looking forward to coming back to resume his duties for the council. Around the proactive and routine maintenance work, everything is going well. Moving into wastewater operations, yep, we continue. There's nothing really major to report. There's been actually very few service requests in that area.
Sorry, Alex, I'll just get back one. Could you give us a very brief take on the Balmoral where that's up?
Oh, sure. So what we're doing with Balmoral, you remember this is one scheme which didn't follow the same water treatment upgrades as the rest of our water schemes, because it was prudent to take attempt to take advantage of the acceptable solutions that was being worked on. So we were at this stage, the acceptable solutions, the new version has been adopted. I reported on that a few months ago. And what the team has been doing since then is working through options with suppliers. So essentially the new acceptable solutions place a greater risk profile onto the water suppliers rather than the regulator, in describing what equipment can comply with the new acceptable solutions. So the regulator released some information to say that we think this is the average cost of the gear that you can use to in order to comply with these acceptable solutions that can be installed at individual premises. Our findings have not matched that. So the equipment that we've gone out to the market for and said, you know, we need to achieve this. We found that the costs were significantly higher than I guess what the regulator had portrayed. So we're now working with, I guess, the wider suppliers across New Zealand to try to find something that would suit the Balmoral scheme. And at the same time, taking that into account, we've decided to reprice the centralised treatment option and put that back into the mix for the right option to be considered and made for the future of the Balmoral scheme. So where we're at the moment, we are in the process of repricing the centralised treatment option, and we have got some better pricing for the individual treatment, so that if the treatment was to be done at individual properties.
Timing wise, is that something that they decided by the risk?
Mr. Chair, I might kick that over to Hamish.
If it's done before 1 July, the decision is made before 1 July, then it'll be decided by council. If it's not, then Wisco will make a decision.
Moving on to wastewater operations, largely routine maintenance program is going relatively well. Through the heavy rain events, we haven't experienced any issues around the district worthy of mention. We certainly have had challenges with high sump levels and managing wastewater flows through our treatment plants, but nothing unusual. Likewise, with stormwater, our routine maintenance program has gone really, really well. And the fruit of that is shown as we get heavy downpours, and we don't experience largely much of issues around the district. We are still very closely watching drain levels and lagoon levels with some of the investment we've made earlier this year and last year. We can now see a lot of that information remotely. We've installed drain level monitoring. We've installed weather stations where we could see the rainfall amounts and things like that. So that monitoring is no longer somebody going out to eyeball things. It's logging in and seeing that remotely, which again saves cost and allows rest time for our staff.
I was just going to ask the auto samplers for the what's involved in that.
Mr. Chair, yeah, if I can direct you to page number 26 of the report. So, Mr. Chair, we piggybacked, so as our global discharge consent for stormwater was granted, we looked at how we could deliver the very large sampling requirements that are required by their consent, and the very few staff that we have looking after, I guess, stormwater around the district, and trying to not contract these sort of things out. So we looked at how other councils have done that, and what other councils are doing around the place, and in particular Selwyn District Council. It's been working with a supplier in Christchurch and Environment Canterbury, and they've installed some auto samplers to try to get that first flush water that you get at the initial rain event, which is what we're required to grab, and we sort of adapted those to fit our needs. And what we've done is we've gone out throughout our reticulation, that is every single township in the district, and we've installed a form of those auto samplers. Yeah, and we are now onto our first round of sampling around the district.
What are you finding in the samples? How are the results? Have you had any results yet?
Through Mr. Chair, we've had, so I believe we've submitted the first round of samples. I have not had a look at the results. As you may have seen through the reporting, this is quite a large beast. There is a lot of sampling to do, and there's a lot of baseline monitoring, so that it will be probably another year or so before we can make assessments around and trends.
That this sampling is we're not giving ourselves extra work, we're doing an easier way of getting it work we'd otherwise had to do with a lot more sampling individually.
Just to explain that a little bit more, essentially the resource consent requires us to do a sample straight after a heavy rain event. And that sampling is to sort of determine what the runoff is, or what the accumulation of contaminants may have been in that particular section of drain or swale. And the auto samplers actually do that collection for us. So rather than us having to dispatch, several people to go and grab those samples manually, the auto sampler captures that first flush and just holds it in the bottle, and we go out at a later date and collect that sample and take it down to the lab. So yeah, it's work that we would have had to do, would have had to have a lot more people doing it, but yeah, we've done it with a little bit of ingenuity, and we did something that's already proven and accepted technology elsewhere.
That's great.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, Alex probably hasn't even stressed this enough, that what they did was they adapted somebody else's technology to do this. If you go for the electronic auto sampling route, you're looking at $6,000 to $10,000 per sampler plus. If you do it manually, you've got guys on standby ready to rush out when they think the first flush is going to hit and waiting for it to happen, and it costs a huge amount of money. I can't remember what these things cost per each, Alex, but What do they cost, these devices?
Yeah, so I think all up, the entire setup is, because the $6,000 or $10,000 mark, that's just for the auto sample
Yeah.
alone, that's not installed.
Yeah.
We're probably looking at, like $1,500 all up installed in the ground, because it's our own staff installing them. So yeah, in terms of cost saving, there's a massive cost saving in comparison to buying off the shelf items.
So it's great work being done. Brett,
Through the chair, if I could just, aside from that, to pop up to the photo up above in relation to the clearing of blocked pipe down Leafield Beach. There's an incredible difference between the two. This is not a criticism, it is a question. How long does it take for a pipe to get like that, and is there an issue with monitoring to allow it to get to that stage?
It gets like that, Mr. Chair, it gets like that in about 2 hours. High tide and high seas like we've got at the moment. As soon as the heavy through flows on their pipe stop, that it'll be filled up with sand like that.
It's incredible.
I have a question around this one. For start, it's great to see that you pump set up, and that's obviously controlling the situation at the moment. Where does this type of thing, once again, fit with Wisco? It's quite an operational type thing, and it's got to be really closely monitored. Where is something like that going to end up with us, or with Wisco? Or
It's in the Wisco.
it's in the Wisco.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. Alex, just in relation to that, Jane, thanks for raising that, Brett, because I was going to ask about it, because that is phenomenal. Are there any ongoing investigations into, I know that we've done a lot with that drain, we've tried a lot of solutions, and, are we still looking for a more permanent solution other than, a clearing before heavy rain and a hope that we won't get heavy seas within 2 hours?
Mr. Chair, it's a bit of a tough question, and so my position, council, I guess, is not that. It's not. So although we will certainly work with our assets team into looking for solutions, but what we have found in the past is that the costs of doing changes in that sort of environment are quite large, and what we're doing at the moment is actually working relatively well, and it's yes, it is labour intensive, so it requires sometimes up to 2 days to clear the pipe. I guess the new so the equipment that we've got down there to try to clear the pipe is continuously evolving, so we're installing newer nozzles now to fit the bigger pump, and there's a variety of bits and pieces that we're sort of trialing. What we have also brought and reported on in the past is that if we install something in that sea environment, whether it's a non-return valve or a sock, or we remove the structure altogether, introduces a new set of complexities, and there's nobody that we are aware of that is going to guarantee the work that we do. So it's a difficult one to answer.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and yeah, and am aware of the historical notorious issues with it. Yeah,
It really has been the search for the Holy Grail for
It has.
It's a difficult one. Chris.
Yeah, Alex, through the chair, to Alex, looking at these pictures, how intense was that block? Was that the full length of the pipe?
Through Mr. Chair, absolutely, yeah, the entire length. Yep.
Thank you.
Unless there's any further questions, that's probably me.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex.
yeah.
We go to page 27.
There's Brownie's not here at the moment, so I'm going to run you through the compliance, and then Sally's going to take us through the waste management, waste side of things. So generally, compliance ran pretty smoothly over the period, with contractors deal with the majority of the compliance issues during that time. And we're now back into a busy period for food verifications and the annual swimming pool barrier inspection program. The district licensing committee decision to decline an on license has been appealed, so there is a pending on that. CSR's roughly 50-50 between animal control and compliance, and 3 dog attacks in January, with 2 with bites on people and 1 of a dog attacking stock on its own property. Illegal rubbish disposal costs. I mean, there's a real cost to this, and it's ongoing. I guess the graphs speak for themselves there. So Andrew notes the issues that they're still working on with the Datascape configuration. That is ongoing, and as noted previously, we invoiced Datascape for those costs. There's some parts of the system that aren't working as they're meant to, and we're working through that with Datascape. So it's the pound facility, a couple of minor improvements there, lights and hot water. Food safety, we've had one enforcement action against the business, which in washing chilled storage. It wasn't a registered food business either, and we've issued a notice of direction, and we've issued an improvement notice in November, and then lifted it following that improvement being made. RMA and unconsented quarry. Bridge currently. Some new signage at the Waipara River swimming hole as a result of the ongoing poor water quality there, and also signage erected at the Barton to discourage the upcoming activities plans. The first one's an interesting one. This is a Ministry of Regulation, and one thing they've been working on is a hospitality sector review, and seeing whether the hospitality sector is over-regulated. So there's a meeting with them regarding the work in that area. We're coming up with SPCA just to renew the MOU that we have with SPCA around animal control, and there's some work to do with the implementation of the updated dog control procedures that have been discussed previously. Mentioned the updated public places bylaw, and the upcoming review of the compliance enforcement policy. So there's just some work going on in those areas, and we're looking at options for improved access on Chamblee Beach, just trying to control the amount of particularly vehicle access points onto the beach and get people to enter the beach in the right places where it causes the least damage. So that's a quick whirlwind of the compliance area. Happy to take any questions before Sally moves on to the waste and recycling.
Okay, waste and recycling, it's been a really busy couple of months for us, particularly with the rollout of the new contract. The transfer stations, particularly Hamnet and Ambley, have been extremely busy over Christmas and January, and we're still feeling the impact of the Christmas break as well. Our visitor numbers at the sites are up. But interestingly, our tonnage for both recycling and rubbish is down. We're actually tracking about 70 tonnes down on transfer station waste in comparison to the same time frame last year. And that's even allowing for the 170 tonnes of waste last year that came from the Queen Mary fire. So it's really interesting, the substantial increase in visitor numbers, but the tonnage is going the other direction. CSRs, we don't actually get a lot of CSRs. We're quite lucky in the waste. We had 6 over December and January, and a couple of those were actually one submitted twice over the Christmas holidays, and one was one that should have actually gone through to the hot pools, not to us, but between us and the hot pools we still dealt with it. Backloading of our recycling is working really well into Christchurch. I think we've done about 68 backloads in 6 months, which is saving council a significant amount of money. One good thing for the waste and recycling team at the moment, I don't know if this has actually been said here, we've received we had a successful funding application to the Ministry for the Environment for $90,000 to roll out glass recycling in Amberley. That starts on 1 July this year, but over Christmas and New Year, we've been doing all the behind the scenes work. So from this $90,000 we've received, the first payment we've drawn down already, and all the curbside boxes are now on order to ensure that we get them in time. The contractor's built a new collection trailer and they've done a test of it in the Amberley Township too. We've had to write a health and safety, a rollout and communications plan and submit all of that to the ministry, and that's been signed off as part of milestone 1. So they've given us $20 per household to pay for the curbside boxes, $5 for publicity, and then they've given council an additional $50,000 to cover staff costs, i.e. whoever undertakes the rollout of the project within council. But because we're so far ahead, we're confident as a team that we can manage that within the existing team, within the existing resources we've got. Challenges and risks for the waste team. The ongoing challenge, unfortunately, is the township recycling bins. Over Christmas, New Year, and even now, we're finding the bins at Amberley Transfer Station over weekends. We're coming in on a Monday, it's taking us up to an hour sometimes to clean up the mess that we're being left. We're being left bags of rubbish, TVs, oversized cardboard boxes. We trawl through the cameras on a Monday, and those we can identify, we are making contact with. Initially, we do education. Please do not do this. Please use the transfer station during opening hours. And we warn them, if we capture them again, it will move to an infringement. We've had a couple of apologies come in, but luckily no repeat offenders. But the contents of the recycling bins, not the glass, the mixed ones, are continuing to be sent to landfill. It's so bad, we can't sort it. We're getting building waste in it, we're getting glass put in it, we're getting all sorts, nappies, food waste. If we take that material into Eco Central, they'll reject an entire truckload, which will cost us about $3,000. So unfortunately, it's just all having to go to landfill at the moment. We've had a couple of isolated incidents of vandalism in December. We had one in Rotherham and one in Colverton, a couple of litter bins burnt out. We've only replaced one of them. And rather than send somebody up to do it, a local actually installed it for us to keep the cost down for council. But that's really the only problems that we're getting, apart from one other. Amberley Transfer Station is pure visitor numbers, particularly on a Saturday. For anybody who's used it on a Saturday at the moment, we're actually getting queues out the gate and down the road. We've had to implement the teams down there using the barriers at the weighbridge and holding vehicle numbers back because people were just going through, parking up, walking behind vehicles. It was causing a risk. So we're having to slow customers going in to make sure that they're safe once they're in there. But we're about to put some publicity out saying to people, sort your rubbish, sort your recycling properly, and stagger your visits as well to try and help us. But in the future, the opening hours is something we flagged that we are going to have to take a look at, whether there's any possibility of increasing them. Insights. Closed landfills. We've completed the capping assessments on 5 closed landfills. The report's been submitted to ECAN and it actually came back better than we were expecting. Things weren't as bad. Yes, there's going to have to be work done, but not as much as we were anticipating. We've also completed the backfilling up at Waikeri Line Works 2. We've worked really closely with ECAN on this and they're quite happy with how things have progressed. Maintenance, ongoing maintenance is having to be worked around when the transfer station is open. That's quite difficult, fitting it in either before 10 in the morning or after 4 or on the Tuesday when we're closed. So we do have a lot of maintenance for the sites that we have to fit in, but we have to juggle it around the opening hours.
Thank you, Sally. I just start a question from Chris.
Regarding the, through the chair, regarding the Waikeri backfilling, the contractor burst cut that open. Are we having to pick up the bill for that, or is that being charged on to the contractor who caused the issue?
He's done all the backfilling for us.
He's done it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. Just in regard, I've got a couple of questions actually. In regards to the opening hours for Amberley Transfer Station, are there limitations on that because of the resource consent?
Yeah.
Right, so it's a whole other process.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, I thought that was the case, but I think that's good for us to be able to, you know, share that narrative with our constituents. And secondly, the funding that was received, the 90,100 from MTA, was that expected or unbudgeted?
It was unbudgeted funding. We had to actually do a whole funding application in order to get it, so, yeah.
And do we have a specific start date for the glass collection?
It will start 1 July this year in Amberley Township only, and it's households only, but we're on track to be ready on that date to go. So like I say, everything's done now behind the scenes. I'm working with comms, all the publicity, we've pre-written it, so everything's ready, but no, it will go. So about mid-May, we'll start getting comms out. We're booked in to talk to Amberley Friendship Group. We've talked to the retirement village as well about going to talk to their residents. So there'll be, for about 4 to 6 weeks beforehand, the publicity will start going out to everybody. Yeah.
Sure, that's great, thank you.
Through the chair, the other question I noted was regarding the cardboard that we're having coming in. I noticed, we all use the resource. The question I have is there are other options for cardboard collection because of the recycling, revaluing and of that of cardboard globally. It's quite a commodity that's traded. Has any other thoughts towards that? You know, because you're talking about the contamination you get in building with all sorts of crap biffed in on top. Is there a way we can separate that out because of the value of guarding with it? I've traded it, so I know what it's worth.
You could do, but it's all a volume game.
True, I know.
Yeah, and that's why we take everything into Eco Central. The contract price, we've got a low contract price because they're working with so few staff as well. So to do increased sorting, we're either going to need additional bins, more space down there, or an increased number of staff as well. So that's again pushing our price up, plus the cartage of that product in, with the income we get, outweigh the benefit.
Through the chair, would it be all right today to talk to Richards? We know they control 90% of it, but nationally, someone of that nature that could supply bins in for us to use it to take that pressure off our staff. We're arrangement of commission rates for the on sale of the cardboard to them and let them supply a bin specified for cardboard. Is that a possibility, or it just doesn't work for you guys?
We could try it. The problem that would impact on our price with EcoSort, because the price on EcoSort is a global price between the councils to provide so much product to them. So if we take the cardboard out of what goes to Eco Central from us, the bulk of ours would be cardboard. So that would push our gate fee on the other products up. Yeah.
So, through the chair, so that would offset our margins essentially. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Just through the chair, just a quick one. Would we consider withdrawing the after hours service minus the bottles if it's continually costing us? And I just looked at the size of those bins. It's not a massive amount that we're actually doing, but if it's costing us more and more and more to get rid of it, are we considering withdrawing the ability for people to be able to do that portion of the recycling?
I think we'd have to balance it up if we could increase the opening hours, because I still think there'd be the risk people could leave it at the gate.
I understand that, be a flow, potentially a flow.
Yeah. Dave and then Tom.
Just a slight comment, I did notice the other day when I was going down to more recycling, there are a number of people putting the recycling in the bins outside on an opening day, and I thought it was quite bizarre how they were putting it in bins outside the gate when it was already open.
Was it just after
Saturday, it was
10?
busy.
Mm.
Was that?
Yes.
I thought I couldn't quite understand why they were standing there they were putting it wasn't that busy, but they were putting stuff in the bins outside the gate. And I thought, do they not know you can just drive up and tip it in and make your life easy?
He took outside the gate, like at the road, or outside the Weybridge gate?
Outside before we went into it. They're outside, there's 2 cars.
Tom.
I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Hamlet community. Thank you very much for all the work you've done there, installing the new bins and having them facilitated to have posters and things on the side. They've been really, really popular, and you've made my workload minimal over Christmas, which is unlike most years. So it's been the quietest Christmas for me on the phone this year. Thank you very much for that.
Steve.
Just through the chair, thank you. Just a question, same question as I asked earlier to the property side of things. The events that you've got down here where vandalism and criminal activity, stuff set on fire, are those matters reported to the police? And if so, do you ever get any feedback from them? And if not, why not?
We haven't reported them to the police. The one at Rotherham Toilets, we label it vandalism, but the contractor searched through what they could find and we think it was hot ash. So that was somebody, a local householder, put that in, and that, for that reason, we were reluctant to put the bin back in, but we got pressure from the community. But the other one, it's a hard one because it could just be somebody emptying out a car and a cigarette butt sets light. We just don't know. I mean, we could report them.
Yeah. And again, I think it just speaks to the wider need to keep the police informed of what is going on around and about in our communities, and the only way that they can adapt their policing response is if they are informed of what's going on. Just be a wise move across the council, whether there's a policy in place when there is any criminal incident. But just part of the policy is to raise a police report. It might be worth something to think about if it's not really there.
Through Mr. Chair, Steve, we can do a 105 online for those incidents, so it's relatively painless. Yeah. So yeah, we'll make sure that we do those.
The system becomes trackable.
So upcoming work for us is obviously continuing the work on the closed landfills. I'm working out how we're going to budget for the capping works, continuing the rollout with regards to the glass collection, and also there's something coming up shortly called the Choose to Reuse Challenge, which is trying to encourage people to think about not looking at anyone around here in case someone's got one, not reuse, making you use coffee cups again as opposed to buying the disposable ones. So it's a big campaign. Mark's coming up on that one too.
My bad.
I keep losing the reusable ones, so.
No, this is just a question, I guess. I know Sally and I had a wee chat a wee while ago, thinking about, we've got new councillors around the table, you know, having a visit to EcoSort, because it actually, I know we've got a visit as elected members up to Cape Valley a month's time, March. And I just wonder whether it would also be important for us to go and have a visit to EcoSort. We've done it before. For councillors to actually understand the whole of system is a really good idea. So if there is interest, maybe either flick an email to Sally or myself and CC us both in, and then we can organise a day that suits to actually go and have a visit, because when you understand how the EcoSort system works, it kind of helps you be able to convey the story to members of our community that ask those questions. So I think it would be a good idea if we think about that and, you know, maybe April, May or something like that, have a visit to EcoSort in Christchurch.
Joe and I have talked about dates as well, and we'll do Amberley transfer station first, then on into EcoSort, so you sort of see how the pieces fit together.
Okay, we'll leave it with you then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally, just a moment. It really brought my attention a while ago how much Sally's going a bit above and beyond. Whenever there's a gap in the team, it seems that Sally's become the super sub for the gaps, and I'd just like to see the appreciation to that. Probably something that may not go as noticed as it should, but thank you.
Thank you.
Sally. Now for the last.
Bushman on page
Still on
2.
page 30, the customer services and libraries.
Hello, everyone.
I know.
So I think, so for some of the newer councillors around, you will have met me or spoken to me or emailed me in my elections role. But in my day-to-day job, I look after libraries, customer services, and also the Amberley Pool. So that's where Amberley Pool will come to the South Ward, but everything else you'll hear from us today. So you'll see our summary here down the bottom. It's just some key metrics. This is over, of course, December and January. And December and January, the customer services, the council closed for a couple of weeks. People go on holiday, so most of the time we get a lot less reporting of things. So you'll see that that's showing a little bit lower, except when there's a weather event. We get lots of calls and lots of bits and pieces. So this Christmas was reasonably quiet. That was quite good. The emails down there, there's some commentary there about the fact that it had gone quite a bit up in January compared to December, but actually December was actually quite a bit down on normal. That figure for January was actually pretty normal for us for what we see throughout the rest of the year. That's quite a normal one. And you'll also see in our metrics for the libraries, we did a lot. We did an awful lot in January. People just decided, I think it was wet. It was a horrible wet January, and people went, let's go to the library and let's get out some bits and pieces. So that was actually quite good for us on that. And you can see that on some of those graphs too. One of the things that we look after in customer services is the compliments and the complaints that come through. So we have a policy around what that defines a complaint and what defines a compliment. So it's more than just thank you, that was really good, to make it into being a compliment. And likewise with a complaint, it doesn't have to, I want to complain about a service, doesn't make it a complaint necessarily. That's often it might be just going to the technical team. There's a pothole in my road, I want to make a complaint. That's actually business as usual. So we have a part that defines, it's sort of like one up from that. And in this period, we had nothing but compliments, no complaints over this period. And so they're quite lovely. The ones that sort of stand out, there was actually one for council or council and mayor, which was an unusual one. So you'll see there, it was somebody who had been to the Pines Motor Camp and they wanted to say they're great. They're not actually a council service, but they wanted to thank the council for their support of the service. And so we captured it. So thank you for your support. Underneath that one, there's a little bit of a typo. There should be a property heading there. So where it says property, that should have been actually a bolded heading. And then underneath it was a compliment to do with the team's response with social housing. There's a lot there for waste and education. So particularly this sort of captured us in December, where we get a lot of stuff from the kids. This is our educator, our waste educator, who goes into all the schools. And quite often the schools at the end of this the class will send in all sorts of cards and send in bits and pieces. So if we were to capture every single one of those, this whole thing would be nothing but a report of pages. So we capture those in a multiple thank you cards, etc. for that. But obviously there was a lot going on with here. I've got one in here that was quite quite telling, was the compliment for the refuse driver. So what this was somebody was walking along with their dog did a poo, they stopped and picked up the poo in the bag, good person. The truck was coming past and saw them doing that and stopped and said, chuck it in, instead of actually making them carry that round. And they thought that was amazing and wonderful, and I thought so too. Okay, and to reiterate what was just spoken about from Hemna Springs, Councillor Tom, was the Hemna Springs litter bins, that they have gone down a real treat, the new bins up there and the service and everything that's gone with it. No complaints. I totally second that part. We often get complaints, particularly for Hemna over that period. No complaints, just compliments. So that's really lovely to see too. Of course, customer service has got a great complaint, and so did library. The library one was quite nice. It was actually a customer went into the Cheviot library and had actually bought these socks that went I'm reading on the bottom of them as a Christmas present and a thank you to the permanent staff there. And what I loved with that was some forethought went into that. Like, that wasn't just a thinking about it. This was I've seen these, I'm ordering these, I'm getting these, and I'm going to actually go and give a really nice thank you. So that was really quite lovely. In our events and activities, the one I'll highlight there was the pop-up welfare centre, which is what I'm calling it anyway. So we had our team meeting in Hemna Springs. We have a monthly team meeting at each of our libraries. And at that team meeting, there was myself, the library, district librarian Mark as well, and also Tamara from our HR team, because she was going through our new HR system with the team. And we got stuck. So there was a nasty accident where unfortunately somebody died just south of Hemna Springs, but the road got closed, as happens with these roads. So we were stuck up in Hemna, which is fine. We can work from Hemna. We all have our computers, we've got docking stations, and we can carry on. But it meant that so did every traveller that was coming through. And of course, you know, end of school holidays type things and other bits. So all the travellers coming that side were stuck. So a lot of them turned into Hemna Springs. And a lot of those people came to the library. So the library was very, very, very busy. It was actually a really cold, wet day that day, overcast and not very nice. A lot of people came to the library to be warm and sheltered and tune into the thing. When we were realising this was going to go on, our district librarian, being the man that he is, and he's in our welfare team for civil defence, he popped over and he got a couple of packets of just from plain arrowroot biscuits, but he came back and he got the tea trolley out and he got the tea out and he started talking to everybody, and it became people telling us at the end of this. There was one lady that actually said this was the thing she'll remember most about New Zealand when she's thinking back on New Zealand, and her whole time in it was the time she was there and the hospitality that was shown. I was just in talks with Alan Gregg, our civil defence person, about what we might need to do if this is going to go on any later. And he was just saying, right, I'll get a hold of our welfare team, because we had people with dogs as well, not in the library, but there were people in the car park because they couldn't get through and they had their dogs. There were people with babies, and it was like, what do we need to take care of? And he was just about to activate his team when it was like, so we carried on with that. The other thing on there you'll see is there's a new thing called the Popular Reading in Huranui. So at the end of every year, there is put out by the listener does it, some other people do it, like what were the best reads of the year. And we went with what was our most popular reads in the Huranui. And they were a bit different to what the main urban areas actually got. So in our non-fiction, it was cookbooks. People really liked their cookbooks. There was other things too, but that was the most popular. And there was, in our actual fiction, Australian authors actually topped, but there was 4 different authors. You'll see a picture on the next page of one of the stands that the team made up to actually put up some of our most popular. Just something different, something interesting, trying different things out within the library. Under our challenges and risks, probably the biggest thing that we've just had in the last few months was because in our particularly Hemna and Cheviot, they're sole charge. They are one person on, and we staff lean, and when a staff member can't make it, they're sick, suddenly something happens, we activate one of the others or casual, and generally that all works fine. But we've just had over the last couple of months 3 times when we couldn't get anybody else to actually backfill and had to actually close the libraries. It's a Saturday in Hemna Springs, one Saturday, and a Monday and a Tuesday in Cheviot. But we took on several new casuals just at the end of last year, which we've now done their training for, so hopefully, touching some wood, that will be resolved now. There's also been some issues out here for us at the front, and that goes back to Datascape. So Datascape's initiation caused a lot of pressures for different teams, but of course our finance team was the one that had the most impact on them. So we loaned them, we seconded one of our team members to Datascape for 1 to 2 months to actually help out with some data entry and some getting some things that went across in there. That 1 to 2 months extended to the 3rd month and then the 4th month. And then before Christmas, when it was we need them back, it was like we just have one more. So which we have done, but it has put a lot of strain on the team for backfilling that. And at the same time, one of our other staff injured her shoulder, and as part of during that, she ended up having some serious surgery. So she'll be coming back to us not until next month, and that's on a part-time basis is coming back in. So the team's been pretty stretched. We have a casual. You'll probably all meet young Millie out there. Millie works across, so Millie is a casual for our team. She's also a lifeguard at Amberley Pool, and she also works now down at the Amberley transfer station. So we will share Millie, and so it's who's stuck, who's stressed, or who's got the most pressing need. So that has definitely had some impacts. Coming up in our activities, the one that I'll highlight for you there is the Digi Coaching program. Now, some of you may have heard about Digi Coaching because it's been done as a pilot at some other libraries around the country, including Waimakariri. What it is we are going to be getting 2 staff members, 20 hours a week each, so they'll be coming in. Now, we don't employ them, they're employed by MSD, so they're literally, we're just providing the space for them down here at the Amberley Library. They are people who are unemployed, but they are able to get, of course, they've got to be able to get police clearance and everything else and have a skill set that allows them to help with digital stuff. So this is basically people who will sit in the library. We get, as the councillors have been here for a while know that I talk a lot about, we have get so many people now sent from government departments, everything is done online. You must now apply for this online, you must get this online, you must do everything online. I don't have a computer, go to the library. That's where people are being sent by the government departments. So I think this is part of that recognition, is that so our government department is now supplying these people to come and work for this period of time at the library to help people with those digital queries and needs, and we're stoked. So yeah, and that's my report.
Questions? Very much, Mary. I was just interested looking at the photograph of her and those choices there that Di Edwin and Alison Lau have made the podium, but there's no sign of it just in the sorry, a question from the
through the chair, just regarding the Digi Coaching program, has that been funded through
it's MSD, so it's you have to give some information on that. It's got a special fund that's been attached to it. It's not coming from us in any way, shape or form. It's actually a central government
coming out of KO or something like that?
Yeah, I can send that through to you. I did actually have that on Mark's original report, but I actually didn't make a note of it, sorry.
That's right, I was just asking.
Yeah, library partnerships was our last one. It was something on there, it might be DIA, one of those. But yeah, it's definitely all through MSD.
Thank you.
question.
Oh, just the bugs.
Yes, the bugs.
The bugs, are they going to go to any of the other libraries?
That's a very good question. So the problem with some of these displays is space. So they're not our displays, they're Canterbury Museum, and the Canterbury Museum work out where they come to and where they go to next. And they look at all the different libraries are noted for how much space they have to be able to take these things. So little libraries like Cheviot, it can be quite difficult to, like, where would we put them when we bring in a display? I mean, that display is not too bad. That one's actually,
that's what I was thinking.
Probably our smallest display we've had for a long time. Some of them can be, you know, 2 tables long with other bits and pieces. So Hamner has room there. I'll follow up on that
because
one.
I just think we all pay a rate to the, you know, and the small area pay their rate as well.
Yeah.
And you know, the library, the museum, it'd be good to wonder even to talk to the Cheviot Museum itself, if they've got room for sometimes to put those
Well,
displays.
that's a good point too.
School,
So, yeah.
because they've just done a big upgrade.
And we can't put them into a Murray school because again, for size and space and everything there, that's one that has been not put on there. But since we did the extensions and changes within Cheviot, there may be an opportunity there, so I will follow up on that one. I think that's a really
So
good
those
idea.
probably get a good following, those
Yeah.
displays like that.
Oh, the bugs have been huge, and that day that we were stuck up in Hanmer with the pop-up IP
You
centre,
with the
that
bugs?
display was so popular, keeping the kids really entertained.
Very much the bugs.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, could ask Dan Lee to come up and on page 33. Deal with the strategy.
Yeah, well, I think so. I guess the amenities report for December, January, I guess the big focus in December was the lead up to the Christmas break and the summer holidays. So yeah, the guys were really busy trying to make the towns look as good as they can, which was great. Unfortunately, one of our staffing was away for 3 months, so we're a pair of hands down. So yeah, the team really worked well together and covered the whole district well and did a great job and it looked really good before the Christmas break. Moving into January, unfortunately, probably common theme through a lot of the reports has been wet weather. And yeah, that's had a real impact on our maintenance operations, mainly spraying and mowing, but yeah, a lot of areas where the mowing contractor wanted to go couldn't get to because of the weather. And yeah, things probably aren't as tidy as they normally would, but yeah, we're working with them and trying to get things back on track. In terms of our key metrics, yeah, all the data is there. I guess, yeah, as I pointed on, yeah, the increase in reactive work due to weather. I think probably the most disappointing one over the Christmas break was the vandalism. Got some photos further on the report, but yeah, the toilets especially, 3 different sets, different locations all around the district just got hammered, and it's just disappointing. It leads to extra work for our guys to go and fix them, and it's not a good look. So it's a shame to see. Hopefully it's just a Christmas spike and it sort of goes back to normal, but yeah, that was just probably a bit of a negative for the last couple of months. Moving on to page 34, we've got a number of graphs here. I won't go through the details of all of them unless there's any specific queries. I guess the CSR number did drop over the break. Potentially that's because people are away enjoying themselves rather than sitting on Snaps and Solve or ring out council, but who am I to say? But that's always pleasing to see. How it means the guys don't come back to a huge workload sitting there for them. In terms of burials, there's a few. Unfortunately, the service didn't stop over Christmas, so there was a few over the Christmas break, a couple, but yeah, they all got dealt with well, and Sexton did a good job there. Yeah, I guess in terms of challenges and risks, I sort of highlighted that the weather has caused us issues, but we'll make that up. And yeah, the vandalism and the resourcing we've touched on as well. Upcoming works. So we've got some more cemetery works happening, some more berms to be poured. Belken as well as Hamness, that's upcoming. The quarterly playground inspections are usually carried out this time of year, so just go around and make sure the maintenance is being done and nothing urgent flagged. And yeah, we're about to go through another renewal for the Sexton contract as well, so just talking about at the moment about extending for a further year. On page 35, just a few photos, some of the great work the team have undertaken on the around the district the last couple of months, as well as some disappointing vandalism on page 36 as well. So welcome any questions on the amenities report.
Then the playground and the village green, see the update on some of that work.
Yep, so at the moment we are just discussing with suppliers around the pricing for the equipment, just making sure we can make it all work within budget. It's pretty tight. So yeah, we got a bit of a shock with the groundworks costs from one of the contractors, so we've just gone out to get a couple more prices before we push going and work the equipment, but it's in hand.
Thank you. Oh, that's got all the hands. Go Paul, I think, Dave.
Thanks through the chair, just piggybacking on Mr. Chair's question. Is there any update on the funding applications in regards to some of that equipment?
So I know for one we were successful the carousel, so we got the funding for that, so which is fantastic. So yeah, they'll just need receipt of the cost of obviously purchasing and also installing. Obviously, they won't pay out until it's done. And I'm not sure that the second one off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know there was a decline, but I understand Vanessa was looking at other avenues. Maybe I'll catch up with you. Thank you.
With the vandalism, what past experience of supervising PD, community service, have you looked at working with the local police to some of the offenders, helping your teams that, especially in the rural, because they've probably got a better attitude, but helping them to rectify some of the vandalism? And once they, my experience is once they start fixing up some problems, they actually take some pride in what they stop doing it. But one was Councillor Hunt talked about reporting it to the police, and I'm saying taking it the next step, because using these people to rectify vandalism.
Yeah, great point. I think the hardest bit's actually catching them. So we're lucky. I know down at the Domain a couple of years ago, we caught them on CCTV, which is fantastic. Did you ever word to them, Hamish? No. But no, we had a discussion with them and went through. I thought we were going to put the hard word on them, but we obviously didn't. We actually had a discussion with them because they were local groups around. Yeah, this is
So
we didn't go.
Supplementary that through the chair, it may not be on the activity that they would be involved with, but you can use them on another activity, and at the same time you're actually maybe giving them some work skills or sort of role model.
The thing is first you've got to catch them, and a lot of the time, if you're down the main, some of the other things, there's been damage when your car was doing donuts things and completely took out a picnic table on a concrete base so hard, cracked the concrete base. There's someone who will know, they probably saw it, the time there's people out there, we almost need a re-education thing, and for people, if you want to keep your town nice, if you see some of these things, tell us. Because there's cameras down there. If someone had just said a time, then that'd have been so easy to catch. Yeah, so I don't know if we can do anything there, but just so look after your own town.
Question through the chair. Do you see a spike over the school holiday period in vandalism, or is this a general problem just irrelevant to that?
And normally, yeah, there's always space, but unfortunately, it seems to be people come in to state they either get called or they leave and it disappears. I know we've done that in Amberley. But no, normally the Christmas time of year is probably the worst. Like I said, there used to be a lot more spray painting, which was quite easy to fix. But yeah, the toilet takes a bit more investment. So yeah, the toilet's been worse I've found over the last couple of years, more than tags.
Thank you.
Mowing seems to be my pet one at the moment, sorry, but yeah, a number of places I've been, there still seems to be a number of complaints about mowing, and I do realise it's been a challenging season for it as well, but yeah, certainly in the last, I mean, they used to be really good a couple of years ago, but in the last year or two, there seems to be a big shift and stuff. And I was actually in Waio the other day, and I was going to send you some photos because it was long, and then the guy turned up for mowing. But he didn't actually use a catch at a screen either, which was part of their contracts. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so there's obviously still a few issues as well. So.
No, thanks. Yeah, we'll pass the feedback on, but yeah, we're that at the moment it's not looking that good around the district, and yeah, we're meeting them next week and just raising that, make sure they've got the extra resource to get it back up to spec.
It seems to have been the hot season though. Yeah, and I know they've made changes about where crews and that come from.
Excellent. If that's all, I'll move on to the program capital report on page 36. So in December, we managed to complete a lot of procurement activities, which is a big milestone for the team because we do a lot of scoping, surveying, designing to get into that stage so we can go to the market. Yeah, we managed to go out and award a couple of water main contracts as well as wastewater contracts. So yeah, like I said, a lot of work got in, got them awarded before Christmas, which has allowed those contracts to start in late January and some early February. So all those works are now underway. Pleasing to see was the pricing received was a lot lower than the engineer's estimate. I guess it's good for us. It's not so good for the contracting market. It's pretty dire out there. And a lot of people haven't got work, so they are chucking in very low prices. So like I said, it's great for us that we can take advantage of that and get a lot of work done. So great from a council point of view.
Again, touched on earlier. Yep. If we ever start to come back to be a bit of a balance as to, is it a significant sum that makes a significant difference on debt, or is it something that would be better off getting gains and getting work done? That'll be the equation, I suppose.
Some of the sums are significant, and we're looking for a bit of a steer or a little bit of discussion around, are you happy that we continue to make decisions about whether to extend the work to do work that will be in the next year's program or whatever, and get it done while pricing's cheap, or would you prefer to have a saving on the debt line, knowing that when you come to do this work in 1 or 2 years' time, it's going to be a lot more expensive.
Mr. Chair, when you're contracting, I know it's tough out there contracting, it's the nature of the business, it's like this, it's always is. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of room to soak it up. The question I have is, with our contracts, I don't know which one we're at, it'll be 39 something. Are we managing our variations and our contingencies well enough to not let them sneak the figures up on these original quotes?
Very much so. Yep. So you're running 3910s. Yep. Yeah, we always have a contingency figure, but we're not talking large numbers. You know, around 10% normally. Usually we've got money in our pocket. So
so we're managing the variations under clause 9 as well, and all that sort of thing. We are keeping them under control.
We are. Yep.
Thank you. Yep. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it might, I mean, to try and get an understanding of whether we save that money and manage, you know, the cost or go on or box on and do the work. It'd be quite good to know what that work was and what was it planned for next year, the year after, you know, like what is the urgency to maximise the cost returns, I guess, that we're seeing at the moment.
So I guess we could quote you an example of a recent job which came in at about 60%. I think the engineer's estimate, it was replacing AC pipe, a whole lot more AC pipe in that same stretch that needs replacing. And so we could stick with the original engineer's estimate and get about 40% more done. That AC pipe would have to be replaced in a year or two anyway. So, you know, we can take advantage now of the favourable price, not go over our budget, and get a whole lot of work done, which we won't need to do in, 1 or 2 years' time. So on that particular one, we made the decision, but we also said to ourselves, well, we're better to come back to council and get a bit of a steer about whether this is actually what you want us to do, or whether you want us to have a lower debt line by taking the savings now, knowing that that there's going to be an increased cost later on.
Can I just ask, are you expecting a steer today, or are you expecting a decision?
We don't expect you to make a decision on this. We're just looking for a steer. I mean, at the moment, within policy, we can do what we're doing, and there's no problem with that. That's in the policy, but we're also mindful that it's easy for us to carry on and do that, and then you say, oh, actually, we would have preferred that we had a saving on that.
That kind of gut feeling kind of makes good sense to, you know, make progress while the procurement's good, you know, but it's sort of my gut feel.
I could ask from Ari, do you think it would be pertinent to perhaps have a wee round the table and give them a steer?
Well, I guess we also, need to be reminded that we shouldn't be making a decision without some good data as well, but,
So.
I mean, a steer, go around the table, get a steer,
Sorry, no,
yeah.
So I'm jumping the gun.
Yep.
There was a couple of hands up over here. I don't know who came first, but we're going to Tom and Dave.
Just a quick question. If we were to spend the money now, or we were to spend the money later, would either scenario be impacted by the rate capping? So if we put it off, if we didn't do it now, we put it into the forward program and did it later on down the track, might we be affected by rate capping, which would prevent us from doing it?
So rate capping doesn't apply to water assets.
Dave, I think was, and then Chris, and then Vince.
Through the chair, so firstly, are we mainly talking about underspending in water? Or talking about eroding and all other components to steer on it? Like, to me, if it was eroding, we had some same principles must be applying, getting better contracts to do, even though you've got the big contract. If we can get some savings in that, can we move that money to something else? Like, we know Golf Links Road happened, savings could go into there, so then it's not a big spend. In the water, to me, so yeah, so I suppose it's moving the money you've got into something else that may be ballooning out, or do more work. Makes sense to do more work if you can.
So the significant variances we're seeing at the moment are in water. Wastewater. Yep.
Lost track of who was next. I think it was Chris over here, and then
I mean, to me, it makes sense that, as you say, getting it cheap now rather than spending twice as much in a year or two's time. I guess the other side of it is with this new Wisco coming in, how far into the future are we actually planning? Because as of 1st of July, is all this going to be irrelevant as they take over?
Yep, we've considered that as well, but it's the same customers that will end up paying for it. So that's why we've sort of said, no, let's just carry on and do it.
I just was trying to work it out with depreciation and that there's other costs come into it. So very well, we'll get for this money, we'll get another half, but then depreciation starts charging on that new water, so the customer will get. Depreciation is going to be a big cost in our water schemes as the years go by. I don't know, I might be wrong, but accounting wise it will be appreciation, because this new thing, even though it costs that, you've got to value it to as if you were replacing it again, but on a new, whatever the charge you'd normally think it would be.
Yep, it will impact on the overall valuation, but the impacts will be pretty minor on the sort of things that we're talking about. So the overall impact on depreciation is pretty minor.
Yeah. Just a clarification, I guess. The budget we've put aside for water has to be rated for water, so it's the only place it can be spent anyway. And so it will transfer over budget. No, when the Wisco start, they take the debt and they take the money that we've put aside for that.
We're not handing any money over.
Okay, so we're not giving them any money, so they'll take it over, of course.
Assets and debt.
Assets and debt. Mid-morning, I'm hungry. So there's no disadvantage to us, is there?
We haven't been able to see one. We've thought about pluses and minuses, and we can only see the pluses in actually getting the work done. But
it's not going to. So that, but as far as water goes, it will just disappear from our budget. So if we haven't spent it at that point, we'll just change our budgets.
So our debt number will be different.
Yeah.
And so.
But the customer's still going to pay for it. Just come out of another.
Yeah, the customer will end up paying more for it in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm trying to separate out, we're talking a lot about July 1, rather than sort of getting ourselves sort of tangled up in that. The basic principle is that we've got an opportunity to purchase more within a budget to bring benefit to a number of our customers, and I think we've done this in the past. I think Amberley, you know, where we upsized some, it wasn't around procurement as such, but it was our timeliness, you know, so we upsized the pipe in the anticipation to make good for our customers going forward. So if you think about it in that sort of basic principle, it sort of makes sense to, this is our budget window, let's get as much as we can within that budget window, but not go beyond that. And the future is our future, whether it's still the same mailbox. That's how I see it in really simple form. That might be too simple, but that's how I see it.
I agree, I was just fishing around to see if there was a downside, given that we've got to right size everything that's left behind, that's probably where I was at.
2 cents would be, particularly like an example, where you've got contractors engaged, project planning and things have been done, it's a no-brainer for me.
I'll look at even simpler for me. I would say the sun's shining, make hay while the sun shines. Just get on and do it.
Sun's not shining.
That's an analogy. Sun's shining on the coast.
Through the chair, the question I would ask is, by doing this, how do we increase the asset value over the Waco, and what's the benefit for us as a council? Because by achieving that, we're giving them more asset to hold in their books, and we need to ascertain whether or not that's positive or negative. This isn't cash flow, this is about asset ownership. You've got depreciation, you've got assertion, you've got losses and margins. It's an accounting and economics decision more than anything else, in my opinion. And I'd just like to think we need to think that one through a wee bit before we give direction on that. That's my concerns.
Yeah, I understand those issues, but at the end of the day, it's the same customer that's paying for this. And it's a matter of timing when the work gets done, and also to establishment fees, etc., etc. So to me, to carry on and do this work now provides better value for the customer. I mean, the asset valuation that gets transferred to the WISCO is a theoretical valuation. They're non-liquid assets, so you know they don't have a liquid, and so there's a notional value that's created based on supposed replacement, and the replacement and the age of the assets will determine how much life they've got left in them. So yes, it will mean that potentially there's a slightly higher asset valuation, but the question for me is, within the budget, we're always going to potentially spend this amount of money. We're still going to spend the same amount of money, but we're going to get more for our money. So it's like when, you know, I was a kid and I go down the shop to get a 5-cent mixture, and the old grocer used to pop a couple of extra lollies in the bag. You know, I never said no, as you can probably tell. So, you know, that this seems to me to be a really good situation, and our natural inclination is to get the work done. But I wanted to have a bit of a discussion around the table to see whether there were significant fish hooks that we hadn't considered. And yes, it is going to result in a slightly higher valuation of assets going into WISCO, but those assets are going to continue to serve the same customers, and are going to continue to produce a longer term saving to those customers, despite the fact there's a little bit more depreciation. The cost of getting the work done in 2 years' time is unknown. So that's why our inclination is to just push on and get that extra work done.
I think you had a question from Vince.
Just a question I've got, I support it, as long as it's not assets which you've still got 10-year life, and you know what I mean, if they're going to be done in the next year or so, 2 years, but if you're starting to look at that and say, oh, this pipe might need replacing, well, you know, I'm happy enough with the way you're explaining, but I'm just saying that there is a limit to where you want to get your full life out of things. I want to get value for our customers as well, not, you know, because we're going to have a big debt for our customers, and they have to pay it off.
Yeah, that gives us a steer.
Sorry, just through the chair, so is there likelihood that we might apply this principle over 2 or 3 jobs, or like what are we talking about?
It would just be the district-wide budget, wastewater and water.
Oh, okay, so we have
There's other jobs
aligned,
where,
yeah.
I was highlighting Council Daly, where we're
Yeah.
only set to do under the section, a pipe, because the rest of it's fine, we're only doing that section, we wouldn't go out and replace pipe, which is, still got 20 years life in it, so we've only applied this to the district-wide stuff. A good example is we've gone pretty much from Waikari Basin all the way towards Waikari over the last 5 years, we do a section by section by section, all that pipe's the same age, it's all 60s AC, so replace a pipe which needs replacing, so just we can just get a bit more done this year, and then we'll have another crack next financial year.
Yeah.
Until we get it all done.
Is it fair to say that the Wisco is going to pick up on our work in our annual plan initially?
Yes.
When they sort of get their priorities, so you're only picking up work that they were going to have to do anyway. Instead of getting it done a bit cheaper now. Ideally, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Carry on. Yes, we've got a bit of a yeah, off for lunch. Yeah. So in terms of our overall spend, it's sort of following the similar years. As per normal, we spend a lot of time scoping, design, procurement. First half of the year, then the second half we actually get out and build some stuff. And once we start building, the real costs start coming through. So those monthly spends will start increasing sort of February onwards, which will be pleasing to see as the works carry on. Challenges and risks, reasonably standard. One of the big ones, obviously, landowner access. Majority, probably 98% of the landowner is absolutely fantastic. So it's just working with them to make sure we're working on their property that it suits them. So always a challenge, but it's well managed, and yes, the people have been great. Weather, obviously, wet weather and construction don't go hand in hand. So you had a few delays in January, but nothing major. Moving on to upcoming activities and plans, so sort of detail just a few of the projects which are happening at the moment. I won't run through every single one. I guess we're building a few reservoirs at the moment. So up in Seadown, we're building 2 new reservoirs. One's built up to level and the other one's under construction at the moment. Also building another one at Limeworks Road in Waikari, which is built to level and just has to have the roof put on. So it's a different operation that should be done next week. So it'd be great to get that on. Might be holding a bit of water at the moment without that roof. And yeah, those contracts I pointed on earlier, all them have commenced. So a couple of water ones, a couple of wastewater ones. Is there any specific questions on those activities there?
Oh, stage 2 on the Chivita, does that mean the Sinclair Road will be shut again?
It won't be shut, no, but it will be works on the road.
It's quite a job following the road and the damage you actually do to the road, because when you dig up a road, you never get it back again really, because the substructure's been all disturbed, and the road is
I could probably bore you with trenching roads from a particular point of view, but I won't. But yeah, it's always.
I just see the aftermath. I haven't been over it since this last rain, but I can imagine what it was.
So that job in particular, the project manager is actually doing a walkover today to do the defect inspections. So anything like that will be picked up, and then there's a 12-month warranty on that. So any of those will be picked up partially to the contractor.
It's quite tricky for a contractor too on those roads, because it's all fibre optic cables and.
Yes. Mr. Chair, thank you. Have we ever thought about using a ditch witch drilling system? Is that more efficient for us to go forward as opposed to upsetting the road? Just thinking of countering the costs of repair on the road to using those systems. Has it ever been considered, thought and priced?
Well, we use a method of varieties to the stall pipe. So in Colvin town at the moment, we've got pipes, so that's all directionally drilled.
Yes.
So we're going to dig a hole, drill through, open trenching. A lot of the smaller pipes, sort of 125, we can just mole plough in the ground. So a lot of our rural pipe lines just get ploughed in, we'll put them with the bulldozer and drag through. So no, we use a variety of methods. Usually when we go to price, we leave it open to the contractors. Give a spec for both ways, but whatever they can get the best price for, we'll usually follow. So
okay.
Thank you.
Tom.
Yeah, hi. Thanks very much for your reports, really good. I see all these capital items here, absolutely tons of them. Very, very few have been completed. I wondered if, is it a massive great big wish list that we're just gradually working our way through, or is it a proper program? But it just felt to me, if I look at that and I just see blank, 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 you know, that column there is completely blank, and I just felt slightly disappointed that there was no work completed or no indication it was in progress or anything else like that.
Yeah, I guess that appendix there is, it pretty much just shows what has been completed. I guess it is quite a process. We get, July 1, the financial year starts, we go out, complete the scoping, we need to do design, we're going to do procurement, engage people, and then typically the works, a lot of works obviously impacted by suitable construction periods, to try to do the works now. So normally, similar to the spend profile, we don't complete a lot of projects in the first 6 months, and a lot of them do get completed sort of February through to June. There's also other ones on that list which just annual things that just get done every year. So there's no real completion as such. Some things around like sampling for consent, so we have to sample every year for consent for 20 years. So it's on there as a capital item. We finish the sampling for the year at 30th of June, but it's an ongoing activity. So some of them, you might get a yes that's complete at the end of the financial year, but you won't complete it. There's a number of tasks on that, but majority of them is because we are out there with it now.
I think, Tom, too, what you, I can pick up, I see what you're saying. And the last column, are we saying here that there's nothing in there unless they were going to be 10% more than what we thought? I think we haven't kind of got a bit of a feel for where these things are at.
Yeah.
I guess through the chair, I guess Jason does provide his financial report. I guess this report's not really trying to go through that detail. Jason's financial report has got the actuals and the budgets of every single one of these projects as well. So that data is available. We haven't discussed it here, but we can do it what people want.
And there's a minor item.
Almost like a bar line or just anything to get a feel that, we're halfway through that.
Yeah, it just looks, there's all these detailed works over here, and then it fizzles out to nothing because nothing's been completed and there's no commentary. If I have a very minor question about one of the minor items that isn't worth doing here, can I contact you direct?
Oh, definitely. Just going back to your question though, we do internally have an update on every single one of these jobs of percentages complete, work dates, commentary, financial variances. So we have got all that detail here, but we've never put it out publicly. It is, there's quite a lot of detail in there. So I'm not sure if we do want to put that out in the public domain or not.
I mean, this is a completion list showing you what works have been completed. It's not showing work progress.
Yes, and because of it being a completion list and almost everything hasn't been completed, it doesn't give a good insight. It doesn't give the full story of what's actually happening.
I just, on these new main lines you're putting in, do you put in areas for firefighting so they can get water? Because, good, yeah, it just worries me a bit of, parts of the district, it's hard to get water.
Excellent, and just the rest of the reports are a few photos, a couple of things happening around the place, and also the capital program. Once again, I don't normally go through it, but if there's any questions on any of these projects, you can feel free to ask the question now or flick it through.
These will all form part of our long-term plans, and these are the ones that are planned for this current term.
I've only put in the ones that are part of this financial year.
Right, and the ones that are to be done, and then the yeses when they're completed. So we've still got this. So doing anything not done here will be discussed as a carryover and not carryover.
Correct.
And it's standard practice. It's just that we've got it in a way that we can see it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good questions. Thank you very much, Dan. So we'll look up at those cleaning first, so I'll see materials in there. It was my granddad has in a good spot.
Thank you, cheers.
Right, I think we'll stop for lunch now, and we'll be back. It's 10 past. Welcome back. We'll continue our meeting on 43. And welcome Joe. Joe will take us through the community partnerships.
So thank you for allowing me to update on the community partnership space. Most of you will know me as in the youth space, so this is me now presenting under team leader for the community-led development team moving forward. So this report is referring to December and January, and I just wanted to highlight 7 items through the report just to bring to your attention, and then if there's any general questions or queries, then so just first of all, the welcoming communities space. One of the initiatives that the welcoming communities addressed in the early stages with the advisory group was creating a newcomers guide. This was a key part of the starting the process around welcoming communities. And I've just left on your tables there the revised copy of that guide. This was the previous one, so it's stepped up in its appearance, and we're really pleased with the work that Natalie and the team have done around that. The main changes within that guide were including information on our schools. That was some feedback from the community. And it's an ongoing document that the advisory group keeps getting feedback on. So it will morph and change as time goes on. But that's currently where that guide is sitting. And it's core information. It's not expected to be everything in that one guide. It's giving touch points and reference points for people coming into the community to get a bit of a sense and a feel of what's available in Hurunui. Moving through, through the summary listed on page 43. It feels very appropriate to reference the Kia ora summer pool parties on a lovely day like today, as that is the summer that we faced, sadly. So as you know, or most of you will know, our community pool parties are a really exciting, fun part of our calendar in January. We have a week of community pool parties that operate out of the 11 community pools. And then Jackie, our community partnerships coordinator, puts in place an additional week for contingencies for reschedules should any odd days of rain arrive. Sadly, this year we went well into that second week, and out of the 11, we ended up running 6 pool parties with lots of cancellations, reschedules, cancellations. But the ones that we did run, we always get great community support from and great korero that happens in those spaces to get a feel of where our community's at. I want to acknowledge our communications team because they were constantly putting comms out there very last minute as we made decisions of whether we should go or not. And then also our pools team, Naomi's team, for supplying the lifeguards. So again, adapting to change of dates and work shifts. But that was our slightly disappointing pool party season. But all the schools that community pools that we didn't visit, we've reached out to the schools to offer, some ad hoc other opportunities where they might have events that we can support. Moving through to a success that we had over the summer period and a year's work amongst our road safety coordinator, roading team, the GIS team, was the installation of the variable speed signs outside the schools. A lot of work has gone into that consultation and looking at where the appropriate places and speeds should sit. So those were all in place before term 1 started, which is really great. So Emma is collating some feedback and engaging with the schools in particular, how they're finding that, and also in discussions with the police as to if there's any enforcement or what that looks like around our schools at those key times. Moving into the metrics table, there's a number of metrics there, but I just want to bring your attention to the food banks. So under our food security, we provide stats here on the number of parcels and the number of people that receive support from our 3 amazing local food banks. So 513 people in December benefited. This year, come February, we will then have an annual. We've been tracking this since February last year. So we'll be able to, from next month, be able to compare year on year, the time periods, how they compare. But we have been seeing a general increase on demand on our food banks. Now, this is obviously the crisis end of our food situation. We have 12 now of our 13 schools taking up the Food in Schools initiative. Interestingly, Rotherham School in particular got on board this year. Previously hadn't seen need in their community, but last week noted that they've had nearly 50% of their families accessing some support. So I think it really highlights some of that really critical space that some of our families are in around food, accessing our basic needs. Just yesterday we the Food Secure North Canterbury collective, alongside another Harinui representative, Angela Clifford, out in Broomfield, who is also employed by Food Secure North Canterbury. And they're looking at their 3 to 5 year plan, more at the what are we doing to make ourselves self-sufficient and be able to feed ourselves as a community. So there's more of a focus on education. They've created some videos with Joe Seeger in Oxford that we can push out and share amongst our community, basic videos on how to cook. They've also, Food Secure North Canterbury have also produced a mapping exercise of all the local growers and producers and how we can encourage communities that short supply chain, so buying local. So if anyone wants to see that, it's on their website, but it's being socialised at the moment and we've got opportunity to share that through our network. So we'll continue to give you an example, Hamner Food Forest, Leithfield Food Forest, Amberley Farmers Market, the council's own worm farm equipment from the waste from the transfer stations, a number of cafes, Norwester, Red Post, are on this map as they either supply or produce locally. This has been determined by the Made North Canterbury event, but any local producer or supplier can get on that map. They just have to contact Food Secure North Canterbury. So we're looking at how we can support and get that message out to our communities. But for consideration around the food security and how, as council, we support our communities, that ongoing support for community gardens, for considering whether we have fruit trees in our parks and reserves.
and advocating for how our families and community can feed and support each other. So that all sits under that food secure space. Moving on to another metric, we've had a number of activities running over that period. I just wanted to mention the youth council that's formed, the new youth council came together last week before last for their first meeting of the year. And we profile, the Youth Development Officer profiles the young people on the youth page on social media. This year, she's cross-shared it to the community pages, and we've seen a really lovely response from community on those pages, endorsing, supporting those young people. So it's been really nice to be able to actually get that word out beyond the youth space itself into a wider community. Moving on to page 44, some of the emerging priorities. And we're hearing from agencies, particularly Christchurch and Raniora, that service the North Canterbury, that they struggle to find spaces for meeting one-on-one with their clients and opportunities to bring together different groups and those sort of organic connections that can be made when groups come together in the same space. So again, thinking about opportunities in the future of where we may be able to advocate for shared spaces for our key agencies to connect and our communities to connect. I've listed there an impact story. We look to feature collaborations and when communities do what they do best in here. So we might play a significant or a very small part in that process, but here we just wanted to highlight some awesome work in our welcoming community space that our community, this particularly referring to the Filipino community in Amuri, of a series of Christmas events that happened over the last 2 months, well, maybe December, where just having some connections with where to access funding led to them being able to run these really great events for community. So again, supporting communities to do what community does best. And then looking ahead, you'll see at the bottom we've got a number of activities and planned events happening in the youth space, in the neurodiversity parent workshop. We've got a wellbeing expo in Culverden, safer driving course in Waikari. So lots of events happening, but the focus of our mahi moving forward is around us being in community, listening to what's out there, connecting, and then determining what opportunities we can support and work alongside our communities. So that's all I wanted to highlight within the report this month. If anyone has any questions, comments.
What was the reasoning for Presbyterian support to pull out?
So through the chair, my understanding, and Myra might be able to add to this, is it was a funding decision, and they didn't get their funding to continue. There's been quite a lot of work that has been happening in that space with Neomari and Together Hurunui and our medical centres to explore some options around fulfilling some of that need around social work. There are as well some other areas. MSD are just putting together a document for us to share with some information that will have an impact on pensioners. There's some changes to the process for annual, when you receive if you're receiving a pension in addition to either a housing benefit or a disability benefit, you get a standardised letter sent out and there's no response required. There is now going to be a response required, or the benefit may get impacted. So that's going to have an impact potentially in our community. So we're just waiting on some information from the MSD on that so that we can push that out through our networks as well. So just hearing some emerging areas within our age-friendly older person space is, yeah.
Joe, there's a couple of things. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. If I can just help build that picture that Joe's talked about in relation to Vince's question. You will have read in the report here that Natalie has been, the hui that she is having in Cheviot and Amberley and Waikari and Hamner Springs, and Maria is just coming on board. I had the privilege to work or to visit the practice managers with Natalie end of last year, beginning of this year, and through that discussion, we discovered that there was an increasing need to ensure that our older people are kept well in their homes for longer, that there is a need for an older person's social work or whatever. To go back a wee bit with that, the Presbyterian Support always held the contract for older persons' health, but that hasn't been in place for maybe 2-3 years. So it's becoming more exposed, and the health centres are picking up where they can. There is through Waitaha, Pamela Black, no relation, who is working in that space as well, but the need for her to ensure that our older person is living well in their homes is increasing. So we're just doing a little bit of discussion in prepping up, and have talked to some funding potential, some external funding, and the likelihood of that coming through is very high. So we'll secure some external funding and then build a job description, if you like, or a contract around the older person's health social work, which will be covered across the whole district. So there's a wee bit of work to do at the moment, but we're working on that, looking to probably have set up by July 1 if we can, if all the ducks can get lined up, but that's what's been worked on. So does that help? And I'm happy to take another question.
Through the chair, just to note that umbrellaing potentially alongside our medical centres.
Definitely.
Yeah, council.
Yeah, and just probably just for Vince as well, that it's whilst it's there is a strong relationship between the district nursing service, it's much broader than that, because it's not, it's the main, maybe an older person living in their home that doesn't need the district nursing service, but actually needs some support through a social work. So we're looking at a much broader scope for an older person's social work type contract across the whole district.
Their population is.
Yeah, so look, it's looking pretty positive at this stage, and that's, but we're working hard on it.
Thank you.
Couple things I was going to say, Joe, it was great just to pass back to your youth group the input and enthusiasm at the chairs meeting the other night. That were quite cool. But the other thing around the work with the Filipino community, is that something that's come from the Filipino community, or is it something we can do? And why I ask is that's a lot of rural, but in the urban, particularly I'm thinking of Amberley, we've got quite an Indian or Asian community now. I wonder if there's anything we could be doing to welcome to her and know them. I know there's talk of national, because it's Hamish, but a cricket match maybe next year. But it's become quite prominent. We don't want to forget the whole group that's out there.
Yeah, so through the chair, absolutely. I mean, this example is a long-standing, when welcoming communities sort of first came into being here a few years ago, that's initial traction, and there's a lot of energy in Imari with the Filipino community, and one of the those community members who sits on the advisory group. But Natalie is working really hard with Hamna. There's a growing Indian population around businesses in Hamna, out towards Cheviot, Pacifica communities. So this is an example of a story, but please be assured there's absolutely lots of working within those groups in different parts of the community. And I think through the stakeholder huis that Natalie wears with that other hat with Together Haranui, lots of that comes through in those spaces as well, in terms of accessing supports and services. So it all sort of triangulates together.
Oh, great. So there's things going on in the background.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, a little bit of a comment on that, because I've probably watched to chair the Filipino community grow from 2, what is it, 500, I don't know what it is. That will naturally occur in Hammer or Amberley by their communities. So our challenge is because they will do that. If you're a Kiwi and you go to England and you hang around as a Kiwis as a group, you know, you come here as a South African and you seem to marry a South African. And so our challenge is that we encourage them to participate in the whole community. And that's my worry in Culverden is it's now even become not just Filipino, it's become tribal. So, you know, so you've really got to try and break it. And the best, you know, we can do is try and encourage them into the wider community. And because there are so many talents, but the easiest is to stay in your cluster. So, like we did have Ray in the building here in our Lions Club, which was, you know, pretty radical for Harlan and Waikari to have a dairy farmer and someone in Ray in the club, which was quite different. Joke, but it's to try as hard to get them to go out and do things like encouraging the migrants, because they're not migrants now, they're citizens, to actually go on school camps, be involved with the PTAs.
I suppose that'll work through the schools and then you'll get the next generation. We all went through that. And you go back generations from our ancestors arrived in the country. So it just takes a bit of time to work through.
Further questions for Joe? Thank you very much, Joe. First hit out, taking over. Well done. So now if we could go to page 45 and ask Andrew to come and go through planning.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks. Good afternoon to you all. Yeah, so this is for the December-January reporting period. Total of 16 land use consents and 6 subdivision consents over that period. We continue to process those applications within the statutory 20-day timeframe. I think the key thing for me, some of the major applications were a 42 lot subdivision on corner of Amberley Beach and there's a double corner road, which was the Plan Change 6 site that was recently approved. That's on request for further information. There was a 20 lot subdivision which was granted and recently notified, which was in off Courage Road, on Courage Road. And there was the 76 hectare solar farm just off State Highway 7. So that's also out for further information, And the other significant activity would be there was 147 new lots in the process of being created out in the spring. So that's gone through the 2D3, 2D4 certification process. Other significant factors, and you probably may recall this when we gave a brief update on the proposed council submission on the RM reforms, and we've got this new national environmental standard, detached minor residential unit, or granny flat, or a family flat, or a granddad flat, however you want to describe it. I think we've had 2 applications, or two have been in the process of being approved. Yep. So, and as I said when I gave that RM reform briefing, on the face of it, it's a good approach to simplify, make it more permissive, so we're not coming up the works with unnecessary permits and consenting processes, but it's not a black and white yes, no. It still needs a bit of a check, and we're still working with customers or encouraging the customers to come and talk to us and the building control guys first before just charging on ahead and thinking it's all good to go. Generally, it should be. There are some fish hooks in there, particularly around areas of natural hazard area. And some of the language used between the Building Act and the Resource Management Act, just how these activities are described. We call them detached minor residential units. I think the Building Act calls them standalone single units or something like that. It's like a perfect opportunity to simplify, and they could manage to do that. So that's my take on it. That's probably all I really wanted to highlight for now. I'm happy to take any questions.
Just regarding the solar farm, the 70 hectares, did you say?
76 odd. 76 hectare site.
Yeah. Is that intentionally going to be for the entire site? Is that the application for it?
I don't think it's the entire property. It's a part of the property.
Supplementary through the chair. Being that it's going to be there, you've gone back with RFIs.
That's right.
Are we privy to those at this moment?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I guess the point of identifying the RFIs was to say that we've received this. It's a, I guess it's a procedural thing that the planners need to do to better understand the application so that they can assess it against the district plan. And some, it'll be things like specifically we wanted a more detailed scheme plan. We want better glint and glare assessments. There's some consistencies about construction and delivery hours. We want some clarification on that. So a lot of it's little rats and mice stuff. Some of it's a bit more substantive.
Another supplementary, is it true the NZTA have refused the bunting proposal on the design?
I don't have that information.
You don't?
No. Yeah, well, that'll form part of our assessment when we go through and process it. At the moment, the application is on hold while we wait for that information from the applicants. Because it's gaining access off the state highway, whatever NZTA have got to say about the effects of the proposal will have a bearing on how we assess it.
Thank you.
Could I ask just very briefly about the HUD defence, the development on Claridge Road, next on the road and down. Once upon a time, there's a big area around it. They haven't changed the way they do things. They don't drop off from a hopper and things like that. But I'm thinking we did have a wee bit of issue with development around there under trees and things when there was breakdown communication probably between the landowners and one sections as to what goes and what stays. To take it that development like that, they've got their eyes fully wide open where they're leading into.
You'd hope so. They may have some no complaint covenants that are imposed on the titles. If they do, that's not a concern that the council hopefully gets involved in, unless we're party to those covenants. I'm not familiar. I can get that information and come back to you if that's the sort of information you need to find out.
I was just I think there was any surprises here.
Yeah.
Or unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to comment. I wouldn't want to put words in other people's mouths. Because no.
Can I go through the chair?
Please.
Sorry, dragging you back to the solar farm again. So I just neglected one question there. Has been an application for an extended intake of water for the cleaning process, and is that relative to your instruction? Meaning, does it come under your umbrella?
No, it'll be Warwick.
It'd be Ken. Okay, thank you.
We've asked about, in regards to water, firefighting capacity. How that's going to look on the site, where it's going to be. That sort of thing.
Thanks.
I see that 20 lot subdivision on Carriage Road, sort of Ravensdown is getting forward and now, isn't it? You know, it's,
and it's good location for residential. I mean, it'll be probably contaminated, so there'll be some remediation if that was what they wanted to do in the future, but you know, they'll have existing use rights to continue as provided they comply with their whatever consents they have in terms of discharge to air and noise and hours of operation, lighting, etc.
Any further questions, Frank? Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the discussion items. So could I have a mover that we accept discussion items? Steve, second, Tom? Those in favour? Yes. Now go to information item, page 48.
We had some discussions previously about changes to our process, our internal process about how we respond to and investigate dog attacks. And this report just confirms the changes that have been made. And you know, the whole aim about this has been the customer experience. You know, in the event of a dog attack. So it's been driven really by our experience with dog attacks and investigations over time. And what we're looking to do is to improve timeliness, make sure it's really transparent for both the complainant and the owner of the dog, and that we deal with things really consistently. So we're clearer guidance and public information on the Dog Control Act enforcement processes is going to help the community better understand what to expect when there is enforcement being undertaken. And hopefully it is going to improve that experience for complainants and dog owners. So as noted there, we received around 380 service requests related to dogs each year, with about 25 on average being about dog bites or attacks. And we have had feedback from customers which highlighted where we could improve the process or has created some dissatisfaction. And so, as we noted earlier, we've looked at the process. And the improvement points really are about early personal contact. So this is making sure that we contact both parties early and we do it in person, so that both parties feel informed and heard in the process. Will allow a settling period, a 24-hour settling period before taking statements, just allowing things to a bit of the heat to die down a little bit following the incident. Those statements will be taken in person, except in case which not possible to take in person, but you know, the whole thing about this much more personal contact with people. And then we'll provide information outlining our investigation's role and what the potential outcomes are and how the decision will be made, so that people are informed about what the process is and about what to expect. And that information will go to both the victim and the dog owner. We're looking to, or we will, add in information about access to victim support services, so that additional assistance is available there. And we've set up an internal decision-making panel so that when the officer makes a decision, it gets a once-over. So it's not just one person's view, but actually the internal panel looks at it and says, yeah, we're happy with that. Often the focus in these situations becomes the individual officer, and this is about ensuring that that decision-making process is supported, and just making sure that we get consistency across our decisions. So we're going to put a little bit more information on the website so that people can understand how we are applying the Dog Control Act. And that is really it. We have given some consideration to standardising our approach of seizing dogs. But every event seems to be quite unique in many ways, and so you know, the officers are trained in making this decision, and we're more comfortable that we don't apply a blanket seizure, and up to the officers to make those decisions. So that's really where we are. My view is this is a really good example of process improvement that's driven by customer experience. The team's worked really hard to get to this point. They've understood where some of the issues that are actually caused by the way we do things lay, and how we could improve our process to make it a better experience for customers. So I think it's a really good work, but it's there for your information, just to formalise what was previously discussed and show that we are doing that. Any questions?
Sorry. And our previous discussion was heated at the time with Andrew and a few others in the room. When it comes down to internal decision making, are we going to maintain an independent in that, either a person off the council, instead of coming back for a second visit, trying to gauge their whole arrangement in one step?
No, it's an internal officer panel.
Yeah, just we've tested these new arrangements with recent complainants and whatever, I think was what we discussed. So it's good to note that we've sort of, you know, have received some feedback from members of our community that have been through a recent process to get that system improvement. So I just wanted to have that noted. And the review of the complaints and compliance and reinforcement policy. So that's currently underway, so that will just get triggered. And I just wondered whether we should have in here, Chris has raised that internal, I'm happy with that, but I wonder whether we should have, if that doesn't meet with agreement on all parties, is that not when we would go to the dog subcommittee that I think we've got councillors sitting on? So I wondered whether we should have that here, that if agreement isn't met by the decision the internal staffing make, that it would go to a independent, come to a panel of elected councillors that were Robbie and Fiona and
Dave on the fourth.
Yeah, yeah. So I just wondered whether that should have been here as well.
So what that line here is what changed. That hasn't changed. That remains unchanged. This is where we've made some changes to the way that we deal with these processes. Those are a statutory process under the Act, and we haven't attempted to change that statutory process.
Did we see it as a change? Sorry, I can think. Did we see it as a change that we've got that committee in place to manage that, or? I mean, it's neither.
There's always been that ability to appeal the outcome.
Okay, and have that committee anyway.
Have that.
Okay.
Of that committee.
Okay.
Make a final decision. So if people are unhappy with the decisions, it's always been that ability.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that, because it would used to come to the regulatory committee or whatever, so yeah, okay. Right, I just wanted to make sure that we were sort of, that was in our established process, so thank you, happy with that.
Yeah, the contact with the parties involved and the settling period. You know, we've got a minimum of 24-hour period before taking statements and conducting interviews and what have you. I was just wondering, in the event of a serious attack, possibly involving injury, maybe even more, do we still follow that same process, or you know, if a dog has seriously attacked a child, we're just going to let everything settle down for 24 hours before doing anything, or do we go in and put the dog into a pound and you know, take the dog away to make it safer? Just sort of wondering about those serious situations.
Settling period is before we take statements. The dogs attack a child, and an unprovoked attack is there's no extenuating circumstances, we'll grab that dog straight away.
Yeah.
This is about, before we take, because people will tell you what they've seen anyway, but to take an official statement and you know, we might have to caution people and that sort of thing for an official statement. So before we take a statement, just want things to just calm down a little bit, give people a chance to reflect, and then take the statement.
Yeah, but it was more the immediate aftermath of
the immediate aftermath. We step in, we deal with that.
The interview, as we're talking about, is that time frame. I think.
Yes, yeah,
I think
yeah,
that would happen around current status even with leasing stuff.
So I guess I'm just looking for clarification that this is what we're adding to our process. And prior to that, it was that we come to whoever was dealing with it. Now you're suggesting, or you've already had in place, that there was a group, a panel that would take place prior to escalating it. So you've got a group of people making that decision rather than
So the animal control officer makes the decision, it goes to the panel,
right,
and they have a look at the decision-making process and say, yep, sound decision, rock on, or did you consider this? If there's something that they think should have been considered.
And that's new.
And that's new.
That's new. So that's the new part, and then the other bits you've got around it are new, but otherwise it stands as a thing.
Yeah.
You do have those extra bits that if you particularly get tested with it.
Sure.
That's an information on those, isn't it? So just so we're up to date.
Yep.
My only comment would be, as I've said before, we've got an introduction to victim support for the victim was any way for introduction to preventative training or something for the perpetrator, then that would be good too. Got any further questions for Hamish? That being the case, if we go back to the officer's recommendation, that information be received. Steve, Crystal, and Paula. All in favour? Thanks. Carried. So that brings us to on the top for you, Mary. Okay, still.
Oh, yeah, I'm good to be passed. Thank you.
For item 4, to our action sheet on page. So on the record line, that one's in place, as I understand.
I couldn't confirm that, Mr. Chair.
So it was my, yeah, we're going to go and look at it, because there's one thing that the GPS had been done, but it still seemed to be thought that there still was trees in where they shouldn't be. So presumably there will be some eyes on the ground to look at that, so we leave that one there.
Yeah, I can't confirm that it's been done, so
there.
leave it there.
The Fergus Street foot repair. That one's going to be left there.
Yep.
And dog attack process. We can just about take that one off. That. Take that one off. Yeah. Is that one, are we happy enough to take that one off at the stage? It seems to be.
Constantly still, well, they've done some stuff, but we're still working on proceduralising that. Still on
Do we need to add the policy thing on there, or will that just get done? You know, the last paper that we've just done. Do you know what I mean?
Last policy.
Yeah.
So that's probably more of a
general thing.
Overall council matter.
Okay.
Through straight operations.
That's cool then.
happen and it'll go to council first.
Well, no further ado, I think we can close the meeting and remind everybody that we have a workshop at 3 p.m. So.
Shopping time.